Father David Michael Moses. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Been looking forward to this.
So Father David Michael Moses, that's pretty long. It feels weird to call you Father David, but then you got David Michael. It's still a little long though, but it doesn't sound right if it's just Father David.
Just definitely a mouthful. Yeah. What happened was first, when I was in the womb, before I was born, my mom never had the gender of the child checked. She just kind of knew in her heart that it was a girl. She just knew. And so I was Abigail for the entirety of my time in the womb. And then finally I came out and my mom, they handed her the baby and she was like, "Oh, Abigail, you're a boy." And I didn't have a name for 3 days, actually. And on the third day, my sister came in and said, "I'm not going to sleep." It's my older sister until this baby has a name. My mom and dad are like, "We're exhausted, so you're gonna have to deal with it." And the thing is, my dad always wanted a son named Michael. He loved the name Michael.
Okay.
And so each of my older brothers, when they were born, he was like, "Can we please name him Michael?" And the problem was, my mom had dated a guy in high school named Michael.
Oh, there you go.
And she thought that if she named one of her sons Michael, and he found out that it was like a middle school boyfriend, but she thought that if he found out that he would think that she was still into him. So she kept shooting down Michael. And finally with me, she really loved the name David. My dad was still pushing for Michael. So they combined the two. And I've always gone by both, honestly, David, Michael. Even growing up for swim team, there was this one time they were calling our names to for this event. And they kept saying David. And I was thinking gosh, this David kid needs to show up. Come on, man, you got to race. And then finally my dad was like, "I think they mean you." He goes by David Michael. And so, yeah, Father David, I thought about going by Father Moses, but that sounds like you're 140 years old. And so me showing up being like, "Hey, I'm Father Moses," doesn't quite fit.
But even saying Father David Michael, kind of, because David Michael Moses has a nice ring to it,
Yeah.
There's a rhythm to it. I don't know what it is. David Michael Moses, it has a real, there's some snappiness to it. And so, but what did your friends call you when you were a teenager?
Everybody called me David Michael.
David Michael
Really knew me.
Okay, so it's
honestly.
not too formal to call you David Michael, Father
It's really
David
not,
Michael. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely I had friends who would call me David Michael Moses. They would say all of it just because it flowed. "Hey, David Michael Moses.
Exactly.
David Michael Moses."
Exactly.
So I get that. I still get that. Father David Michael Moses. But David Michael is what I went by growing up. And so I've just kind of stuck with that. Most people end up calling you Father anyways, though.
That's
true.
true.
Hey, Father. Usually you're the only priest in a group. So it's not too long.
And you're the parochial vicar here at St. Faustina. And how long have you been with us? You've been here since your ordination as a priest, right?
Well, you get ordained, and then you usually have a month off, kind of. So I did a bunch of weddings for friends and things like that during that month. And then you kind of report to your first assignment a month after that. So I got here July 1st was my first official day last year. So it's been, 14 months since then.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Still kind of fresh.
Very fresh.
Not
yeah.
the new car smell on you and everything.
Yeah, you can still smell the oil on my hands.
Did a bunch of your friends wait for you to become a priest before getting married?
Yeah, actually.
That is awesome.
in the year preceding, I had a few friends who "Hey, you're gonna get ordained this day? Could you do the wedding the next weekend?" And then somebody else asked for the next weekend. I was like, "I already have a wedding for another friend. Can we do the next weekend?" It was crazy to have friends planning the wedding day around you. But it was just such a gift to get to do that for them and be present in that way. And so there's few weeks after ordination were just such a blast.
So weddings were the first official thing that you did.
Pretty
when you became
much,
a priest.
yeah. I mean, I was obviously saying a lot of masses, hearing a lot of confessions,
Of course.
helping out at different penance services and stuff after that. But yeah, a lot of weddings too, which is so fun.
Now we had Deacon Ryan at the time, Father Ryan here. How did we get you instead of him? Is there some kind of are they not allowed if you were a transitional deacon at a parish? Are they not allowed to send you?
There really aren't a lot of rules. I would say in the past, it seems like they usually put guys at different places than they've been before. But recently, I actually have seen it's been more common that they actually will put guys in a place that they know is a good fit already.
Okay.
So I think there was a good chance Father Ryan could have come here too, for whatever reason. There's a personnel board, they call it. Father Dat's on it, a group of priests who make the decisions where guys go. And it's kind of crazy to think about. They're sitting in a room. They have a certain number of parishes that are open. They need a guy. Then they have a certain number of priests that need to go somewhere. And they, for example, they think, okay, Deacon Ryan, how about he could be at St. Faustina, and it's suddenly if they put him here, he's going to have all these experiences with all these people and all these families. Like his life, the context for his life is like being so dictated by that. And then somebody says, actually, how about we put him at Prince of Peace? And then like suddenly his entire future like kind of gets shifted. And, you know, it's like, we'll put Father Dave Michael at St. Faustina. It's just like crazy to think like they're just making decisions, but there are huge decisions for what our priesthood looks like there's next couple of years.
So it's not like one of those situations where in, like, say, for example, like an intern at a hospital, they sometimes, if I'm not mistaken, they move them to other hospitals or other places because they feel like that the other staff aren't going to, you know, respect them as much when they become a doctor because they knew him as an intern. That type of thing isn't.
I don't think
there's no rule like that.
I mean, I would say it's pretty rare to have a guy go to his home parish, like where I grew up. You know, my home parish, where people knew me as like a 5-year-old.
Yeah,
like, there were girls in the youth group that I dated. You know, like you may not put a guy back in that parish context. But even, I mean, there's no like set rule against that.
Okay.
Either. But like, yeah, prophet's never, you know, accepted in his own land.
Exactly.
Maybe you could kind of argue that. But I know, yeah, if Father Ryan had come here, it would have been an awesome experience for him too. In fact, it's funny because I think people still think that I'm him. like people will come out of mass and be like, hey, how are you doing? How's your health? You know, I'm like, my health's good. And I think, they think of Father Ryan because he's gone through a lot of health stuff. And
well, you two were the young hip priests, you know. I mean, and because I remember seeing you all, the two of you hanging out at the feast day celebration.
Yeah,
2019 St. Faustina feast day. You both had your sunglasses. You're walking. I'm like, those are two pretty cool young priests.
Well, somebody had a Corvette, a convertible that day that they wanted us to drive around. So that was a fun day. We took a little spin. Father Ryan was driving the Corvette, the top down. So
that's awesome. So you mentioned your home parish. Where is that?
St. Paul the Apostle in Nassau Bay. It's a small little town right across from NASA, basically on the water, and that's where my family lived growing up.
So not too far from here. About
it's
45
like an hour from here. Yeah,
okay.
45 an hour. It's not bad at all. Yeah.
And have you been there all your life?
Pretty much. I mean, I was born in Aransas Pass, small little county outside of Corpus Christi, Texas.
Okay.
But we moved here for my dad's work when I was 4. So Houston's pretty much all I've ever known.
Do you have family still there?
Not a lot, no. Pretty much everybody has moved
moved here to Houston.
Yeah, so all 3 of my brothers are still in Houston. I have 2 sisters in Austin, so nobody's too far, which is pretty nice. We have cousins here and stuff too. So
how many brothers and sisters do you have?
There are 6 of us. 6 of us.
Okay.
I'm number 5 out of the 6, which is a good place to be because by the time your parents have their 5th kid, they just don't care that much anymore. You kind of can do whatever you want to do. So yeah, it was nice to be number 5.
Number 5. So the first are, if you don't mind asking, boys.
Yeah, the oldest is
girls?
my sister Lauren. She lives in Austin. Is married, has 3 kids. The next is a boy. My brother, he's married, lives in Leak City, close to Nassau Bay. Another brother also lives there. He has 3 kids, married, and then his older sister who's married, who lives in Austin near my other sister. She's getting ready to have her first, which is pretty cool. Their first kid.
Nice.
And then I have a younger brother who's a merchant marine working on a boat up in New Jersey right now. So for the next like 5 or 6 months, he'll be on that boat.
Wow, that's cool.
Working, yeah.
So growing up, were you the most likely to become a priest? Did your parents look at you?
That's a good question. You know, it's interesting because no, I don't think so. I had an older brother, Martin, the one who's married now, has 3 kids. Everybody kind of thought he might be the priest. Like I heard that growing up, like, oh, maybe Martin will be a priest. And, you know, he had a deep spiritual life and, you know, was altar server growing up, but met this good Catholic girl, obviously is married now. So I think it maybe came a little bit out of left field when I was kind of discerning growing up.
How old were you when you first had the thoughts of becoming a priest?
Yeah, you know, they like we do here, they pray for vocations at Mass, for an increase in vocations. And even when I was like 10 or 11 as an altar server, I would think like, I wonder what that means, what that would look like. And after Mass, people would say like, oh, you'd be such a cute little priest, you know? And I'd be like, I like girls. Like that's not going to happen. So it really wasn't until I was 16 and went on a silent retreat for the weekend. It was the Ignatian spiritual exercises that I really felt just in the silence of the prayer, like the Lord saying, it might be you I'm calling. And at one point the priest even said like, hey, this is just in a talk. You should choose the vocation that will make you a saint. And that hits people, obviously it's going to hit people different ways, but that kind of hit me like, oh, that's priesthood. You know, I didn't know why I thought that, but that's just kind of how if I want to be a saint, like I'll be a saint as a priest. And So I was talking with the priest. You have like a 1 hour window of spiritual direction where you can talk to them on that silent retreat. And
Okay.
I just told him, hey, I'm kind of thinking about priesthood, kind of feeling called, but I really like girls. I don't know what to do about that. And he laughed and he said, okay, that's totally normal. That's fine. The Lord still might be calling you. That might be something he's asked you to give up in marriage. So you need to take that seriously. So I started going to daily mass, praying a lot in adoration after that, and felt a lot of confirmation. Just to kind of continue to go deeper, like in any relationship, right? Like when you're dating somebody, you kind of, it's a natural progression of attraction. You keep going, and discernment's a lot of ways the same. You kind of feel something, and you kind of continue to go deeper. So that's kind of when I first felt it.
Did you have a girlfriend at the time?
So right after that retreat, I got a girlfriend. I don't know if that was great timing, but I was like thinking about priesthood, and she knew that. I was honest, but also she was great, really cool. She's my youth group. She was solid, and so we dated for about a year and a half. Yeah, right around that time, like 16, 17, 18.
Was she like your first girlfriend, or you had a couple of girlfriends?
I dated
before
a girl before that. It wasn't for very long. That was the first, like, probably more serious relationship. Yeah.
So not long, meaning a few months.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's all it was. Yeah.
And then this girl that you were dating right after that retreat, before you became a priest, that was about a year, you said?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Yeah, we'd known each other for a while before then.
So what happens there? How does that happen where you go from having a girlfriend to becoming a priest?
Yeah. So we dated for about a year and a half, and it was good. It was a good, solid Catholic relationship. Most of what we did was church stuff. Went to daily mass together a lot. But in like my personal prayer, I felt the Lord, kind of saying, I'm calling you to something more. Particularly with like, I want to help people. I wanted to help you with my life, and I knew the Lord had given me a good life, a lot of resources, a lot of opportunities, and I wanted to make sure I used those for others. And I just thought, what more could I do for somebody than literally give them Jesus through the Mass and literally forgive their sins in the sacrament of confession in the person of Christ? Like, what more could I do for somebody? And I'm having experienced like the grace of those sacraments myself. And I really wanted to be an instrument of that for others. And so that desire continued to grow. And I eventually, I talked to a couple guys, and they said I should really talk to the vocations director, the priest who's kind of in charge of vocations for their archdiocese. And at the time it was Father Dat, our pastor. So I remember the first time I called him, and I made an appointment to go in and meet with him. And he had a great sense when I was talking to him, just about everything I was feeling, that he felt like, let's keep moving, let's start the application process and kind of see, discernment's just about taking the next step, right? So I remember sitting down with the girlfriend in the front yard, my parents' house.
Yeah, how does that conversation go? At what point did you tell her this?
Yeah, that was, I think I told her a little bit before I talked to Father Dat. It was probably a month or two before that. And I mean, like I said, she knew I was discerning, and it wasn't like a huge surprise, but it was tough for sure. I remember we sat in the front yard, and she was crying, and and I tell people sometimes loving God means giving up other things you love, and that can be part of it. And so I just explained it all to her, and it was difficult, but we were able to stay friends after that.
Did she try to talk you out of it? Like, maybe you could just become a deacon?
Yeah, wow, that's exactly what she said.
That's exactly.
Good job, Rudy. Why can't you be a deacon? And being a deacon is a beautiful call, but you got to do what the Lord is asking, right? You don't just want to like try to have the best of both worlds or something. That's not, being a deacon is a specific call, a permanent deacon, and marriage is a specific call, and priesthood is a specific call, and so you want to make sure you do what the Lord asks. So definitely a tough conversation to have. And it's actually kind of funny because probably like I said, we stayed friends. We talked every once in a while, but not a lot. And then when I was a deacon, I get a call from her, and her name pops up on my phone, and I was like, "Whoa, this is wild! Like, what's this about?" I answered, and she said, "Hey, how you doing?" And talked for a minute. She said, "Hey, I'm looking for a priest for my wedding, and I was wondering, I'm having a hard time finding one. Could you help me find one?" And I said, "Yeah, I know some guys. I know some guys who could help." She was getting married up in Chicago, so I was able to make some calls and find somebody to help with her wedding, and then she invited all of us to the wedding, which was really nice. And I probably would have gone if I could have, but it was family weekend at the seminary, so I needed to be there.
Okay.
And so all these guys had their families there, and it was like, everybody's like, "Hey, did Michael, where's your family?" And like, "Well, they're all at my ex-girlfriend's wedding in Chicago." So
so she's close with your whole family.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because we dated for long enough where she knew my parents really well and some of my brothers and sisters. So, yeah,
That must have been a very awkward conversation. Her asking you to hook her up with a priest
it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that. I mean, I was certainly surprised to get a call from her, but I was glad she felt like she could call and glad I could help. So
is there still some awkwardness when you talk to her?
Like I said, we don't really talk a lot now. But I mean, there's always, I guess, some level of awkwardness, right? But we both are very, very happy in our vocations, and I feel very strongly that the Lord worked it all out, was with us along the way. So, yeah.
What about that previous girlfriend?
The one before?
Do you still speak with her?
I did see her at a wedding. They both have actually attended weddings I've officiated at different times. So I remember I saw her at a wedding reception. We talked some.
Were they hiding in the back?
No. I did talk to her for a while too. And that one's, I mean, we didn't date for that long, so it's pretty chill. Yeah.
Do you actually notice the part of the mass or the part of the ceremony where they lean over to whoever they're with? Yeah, I used to date that priest.
It may be a conversation they have at some point, but I don't notice if they do. Yeah.
Do you ever think that while you're, during the ceremony or anything?
I mean, people like to talk, right? People like to talk. So who knows? Who knows what they say?
So you talk to your girlfriend at the time, you break the news to her, and then what happens next?
Yeah, so I'm in conversation with Father Dat, about applying to the seminary, which is a pretty lengthy process, a lot of things that you do. And things are kind of moving forward, and I get halfway through the process, and as I'm praying and everything, I'm just getting really nervous again.
And how long is this process?
So it's less about the length and more about how much you're getting done. So you got to write an autobiography, 10 pages, basically just describing your life and your family. You do a big psychological evaluations, 500 questions. A lot of other things you submit, references from people, academic stuff you've got to submit, that kind of thing. So I get about halfway through that process, probably a month in to filling out a lot of this stuff, and I just get really nervous. Again, especially about the celibacy thing, that was the big part of my discernment. It's as a young guy, 16, 17, 18, it sounds not bad to say mass. Sounds cool to officiate weddings. Sounds cool to hear confessions, be called father. We're clerics, but the idea of never being able to date and get married is kind of insane.
Yes.
It's oh my gosh, that's the thing that I kind of want most in this life, and then a lot of what I'm doing is oriented toward. It's kind of insane to think about that not even being a possibility anymore, And so for me, the question was always not so much could I do it? I felt like God had given me the capacity to do it, but am I going to be happy? And so I want to make sure this is what God wants, that I'm not just being lonely for nothing, So,
yes.
And that's a limited view of celibacy. There's more I could say, but as a young guy, that's kind of what you're looking at, right?
That's all you're focused on as a young guy.
Yeah, you're not biologically attracted to callers, right? You're biologically attracted to girls. That's what you're much more drawn to, So halfway through the application process, I just got nervous about the celibacy thing. I don't know if I can do this. And so I read at a certain point that you could ask God for a sign, that's what he wanted. Because that was the main thing for me. I felt like I could do it, but I wanted to make sure it's what God wanted. So I started praying for a dove. I was God, if you want me to go into seminary, send me a dove. And so when I talked to Father Dat about the nervousness, he had said, hey, how about you come in the office and talk to me? And so I'm driving downtown to talk to Father Dat, and I'm kind of looking around for doves, and I see some birds, but I don't really know if they're doves. And I was I don't know what a dove, I'm not sure if I know what a dove looks like. I should have picked something more obvious. So I get there, and I'm talking to Father Dat, and I remember there was a branch right behind him in behind the window in his office. And I was thinking man, if a dove flies in there and lands right there, then I'm good to go. That did not happen. I just talked to him, and he said, you should really be feeling peace. If it's from the Holy Spirit, you shouldn't feel anxiety. You should feel peace. So he gave me a great piece of advice. At the time, my education was kind of weird. I was homeschooled until I was 14. Kind of after 8th grade, and then I started full-time college classes. So it's called dual credit classes, essentially, is how we were able to get in. As a high school, you can take college classes, but my mom got special permission for me to take a bunch of those really early, basically. So I was full-time college, and so...
At the age of...
Yeah, 14.
14.
Yeah. So I did that for 2 years at the junior college, got my associates in biotechnology, and then transferred to the University of Houston, Clear Lake, which is like a smaller university near my parents' house, for 2 more years, and then got my bachelor's in the humanities pre-law. So it was never really the plan to like be done with college that early. It's just kind of taking the next step. That's how it worked out.
Were all of your siblings homeschooled?
At some point, yeah. So my mom kind of was able to have a pretty good sense of when we would do best as homeschoolers and when we would do best like in a private or public school. So we all went in at different times. I was the only one who never went to like a private or public school and just kind of went straight to college. So
what was that like? How did it feel? Did you feel like you were missing something? Do you feel like you got a better education? Yeah. How do you?
No, that's a good question. So again, like being homeschooled, I enjoyed a lot. I would wake up really early, like 4:35, and just get all my work done, before 10 o'clock, 11, and spend the rest of the day working on other stuff that I enjoyed, music and videos and stuff. So I enjoyed being homeschooled. We also did a lot of social things, some with other homeschoolers, but a lot of sports, a lot of church stuff. So my mom was big on trying to kind of keep us connected. She knew the social aspect was important.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that homeschoolers, they have groups that they meet up with all the time. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think, oh, when you're homeschooled, you're just at home all the time. No, you get groups of homeschoolers together and do a bunch of activities and stuff like that.
Yeah, we had a lot of things that were going on, and you naturally with other homeschoolers during the day because they're not in school either, so you can do other things. But after school, did a lot of sports and again church stuff and things like that. So my mom was just always looking for ways to like challenge us, and because she knew I was pretty self-motivated, she thought, hey, how about you start taking college classes and see how that goes. So my 8th grade year, second semester, I took one college class, and it went pretty well. I made an A in the class, and so
nice.
They were able to let me continue to do that and take more. And it definitely was kind of, it was obvious. I was 14. I look young for my age anyway, so I probably looked like 12 or 11. And I'd be sitting in class day one, and sometimes the teachers would be like, "How old are you?"
We've got a boy genius here.
14, and or just in the halls, people would stare. Or they just come up to me like in the cafeteria and be like, "Dude, how old are you?" And so it led to some fun conversations. But I definitely enjoyed, being able to be challenged in that way, to have more freedom to kind of focus on certain things. So again, it was never like the plan, like, okay, you're going to at 14 start college and be done by 18.
It just happened.
I was just kind of taking the next step. And so naturally because of that, I was taking pre-law classes and things like that. I thought about law school.
Oh, really? What kind of law?
I'm just kind of interested in patent law, I think. Intellectual property stuff kind of interested me. I definitely would have made that move as like a career decision just to support my family, support the church. It wasn't something I would say I was like super passionate about internally. But so, I took an LSAT prep class, law school admissions test prep class. Okay. And that went pretty well. And so I just thought like, hey, I'll just take the LSAT, see what happens. So this is December, about the time, a couple months before I talked to Father Dad. And I kind of took the LSAT just kind of for the heck of it. And I scored well enough where I thought like, oh, maybe I should actually like, just look into this to give God some options. So I applied to a lot of different schools. And the ones I got accepted to that I was looking at most seriously were University of Houston Law Center, Baylor. I got a partial scholarship out to their law school, and Tulane. And so, kind of having that on the table, I wanted to be available to the Lord just to say, hey, what would you like? What would you like from me? And so I actually went to the admitted students day at University of Houston and put my deposit down there at their law center just to kind of have that option available. So at that point, Father Dad gave me some really good advice.
Okay, said, going back to that meeting, with the branch behind him and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm telling him I'm kind of feeling anxiety about the celibacy thing and just nervousness. And he said, well, you should really feel peace. So how about you isolate your discernment? Stop actually thinking about the seminary and just discern law school. Just think about that and see what God says about that. And that's really good advice when you're discerning stuff, especially lots of good things. Law school's good.
Yes.
Marriage is good. Priesthood's good. Just isolate one. It's very hard to be like, God, I have all these options. What do you want? It's hard to kind of get clarity about that. So you kind of just pick one and say, is this what you want? And so started to really, look at law school seriously, what that would be like.
That was really, really great advice.
Very good advice.
Because you get choice paralysis when you've got too many options to look at.
Yeah, exactly. So I spent that next month or two just praying a lot about like law school. And what I found was that like I wasn't really feeling called to law school, and like priesthood kept coming back, right? So even though I wasn't trying to pray about it, it was coming in. But with that also was like the fear from before about like celibacy, like, okay, that's still there. Like I just need to know that this is what you want, you know? And so I was finally praying at a holy hour. It's kind of cool. My home parish, we only have one other priest who's been ordained.
Okay.
And I was the second one. And I always tell people that if we get a third from the parish, then the diocese sends us a free toaster, right? Is
there a big gap between the two of you?
So that's what's kind of interesting is, so at that point I was preparing to, enter seminary, and he was about to be ordained a priest.
Okay.
So he was a transitional deacon at the time, and they did this holy hour at his home parish, and it was the night before his ordination. So at the time I wasn't even thinking about that, but it's kind of interesting. It was kind of a passing of the torch, right? Like his last day, before he became a priest from my home parish was kind of the day that was really pivotal for me going into seminary. So I was praying at that holy hour at my home parish, and again asking God, send me a dove. Like I just want to know this is what you want. You want me to take this next step, and I'm willing to do whatever. Just send me a dove. And I remember even thinking like, Blessed Mother, like crash a dove through this window or something. Just make something happen. And right then I looked up and realized that the huge painted glass window above the altar is a dove, like a giant dove as a symbol of the Holy Spirit, just kind of staring right at you. It's a pretty intense dove too, actually. I like it a lot because it's kind of hardcore. And so right then I felt like, oh, okay. Like,
where's this again?
This is at St. Paul's, my home parish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that dove has always been there.
Well, that's what's interesting. I was talking to my dad about this the other day, and he said, you didn't look at that dove that much because you were always altar serving. Like you were always helping with the liturgy. So you were either at the side of the church where the servers sit, or you were underneath the dove, like serving at the altar. You wouldn't have looked at that dove that often. It was
always there, but you
didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
it was always there.
fantastic.
We didn't really see it, which is like so true about vocation, right? It's always there, but you don't always see it until maybe you have to look at it from like a fresh perspective. And so, right then I looked up and I realized like, I think some people might say, well, it wasn't a real dove, but it's like, I didn't know what a real dove really looked like from like a pigeon or something, but I knew that was a dove. God spoke to me in a way that was like very clear that I could understand. And of course, when I saw that, I was followed by a lot of peace. Like, oh, okay, Lord.
Why did you choose a dove?
I don't even know. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't have like a history with doves or something. In fact, we like to go dove hunting. Like, we kill doves. Like, I don't know why I would have thought about a dove.
You didn't want to choose something that never shows up in Houston. Like, something that's just totally, okay, this particular bird is native to South Africa. God, show me one of those if you really want to become a priest. You didn't want to do that. Like,
if I see a pterodactyl, then I'll just go into seminary, no problem. But that was pretty clear for me. So I called the vocations director pretty soon after that, and I said, hey, I think I don't really want to go to law school. I really want to be a priest. So I'm ready to move forward, see what happens. And it's funny because you think seminaries, you think discernment's kind of done at that point, right? You're like, okay, we're good. But like you're just getting started. That's just the beginning.
That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
So this was after your conversation with your girlfriend.
Yeah. So this point was like 6 or 7 months after that. Yeah.
Okay. So you had already broken up.
Yeah. I wanted to give myself good space, to discern it well. And we actually went on a trip.
Do you think she was still kind of hanging on to the hope of you coming back?
I don't want to say too much about what she was feeling. We may have had some conversations.
Okay. No, it's like, are you sure? Are you really sure?
Yeah.
But anyway, you're saying you went on a trip?
Yeah, we went to the Holy Land for 2 weeks around that time. And that was really confirming for me too, just to be where Jesus lived, is beautiful, and to literally walk in his footsteps was really confirming too of my discernment.
And that's when you knew pretty much.
Yeah, I was ready to take that next step. So Father Dad helped me finish the application process. And we got everything in. It was kind of last minute, I guess, to finish it, but because he had known me from before, I think he felt pretty comfortable, and I was off to seminary.
So that's when you made the final text or call to the ex-girlfriend?
No. I think at that point, hopefully she knew.
She pretty much knew. She's in a good place now. She's married and everything. So
yes, doing very well. But at that point, hopefully the door was closed.
So let's move. Let's double back first to your childhood. Mm-hmm. Did you have any? So you were homeschooled. what decision was made there that you wouldn't go to is there a reason why you wouldn't go to a private school or a public school as compared to your brothers and sisters?
Yeah, my parents could see from an early age I had no social skills, so they no, I'm just kidding. They decided to homeschool me. No. So we were all homeschooled at some point,
Yes.
right? Early on, I think my
Yes.
parents just thought like, hey, because my mom and my dad had the resources to do that, it would be helpful to have us at home, and they could give us kind of a comprehensive Catholic moral education, along with everything else. But my older sister went in right before she was a senior in high school, which is actually kind of funny. So like my mom had all of her grades from homeschooling and she gave them to the school, but she didn't think like the school would really care. Well, the school took all of those grades, right? And like factored them in with her grades from their school. And she would have been the valedictorian of like the high school.
Really?
If it had been for the fact that my mom gave her all C's in PE because she didn't like to go outside. Which is funny because now she's like super into fitness and super healthy, but at the time she didn't like to like run or anything. So my mom gave her C's, and so that kind of messed up her GPA just enough where she wasn't top of her class.
Imagine it was because of PE.
I know, exactly. PE was the downfall. So she went into public school just like right before, basically.
Okay.
She finished, and then she went off to UT. Then my older brother, I think it was like 10th grade. One was 8th grade. One was 7th grade. My younger brother was 5th grade. That they went into private or public schools. I was the only one who never went that route.
And there's no decision, like there was no time when your parents said, well, let's try him for a year or something like that?
Not really, no. So, in fact, to go back to your earlier question, like, again, it was very natural. I don't think we ever closed that door. It was just like, hey, try college. And then college was just working out. So we just kind of kept going. And maybe there was obviously you miss things. Anytime you do one thing, you miss other things, But I still went to school dances and stuff with people. I still was involved in that.
Yeah, you had a social life.
Yeah, I still had a social life. I was around people, and definitely there's things that you miss. There's also a lot of things I got to do that other kids didn't get to do. I'm very happy with my path and very thankful for it, and I would definitely do it again.
Now, your past girlfriends, were they homeschooled too? Did they go to private
one
school?
Went to IWA, the Catholic school.
Okay.
One was public school. One went to IWA downtown. It was funny because I actually went back and said a mass there for the students and told the story, of the girlfriend who went there, because I had gone to one of their dances.
Is this the one that you broke up with? To
yeah.
become a priest?
I'd gone to one of their dances, and I think she was like the homecoming queen, So I kind of told that story during the homily. It was pretty funny.
That's cool. So let's talk about your family, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So it seems as if, based off of the videos and stuff that you put online, that your family's pretty well to do. You've got a hunting property. They've got a lake house. Did that kind of factor into your, discernment to become a priest? Thinking, oh, I want to keep a certain lifestyle, or did it just not matter at all to you?
I think certainly being able to grow up in a family that was stable was a huge gift, right? To be able to have that kind of space to like discern well, God can certainly work through every kind of environment a guy grows up in. I was thankful to have the one that I did. But I think, when you go into seminary, you recognize like, hey, there's no guarantees about what my future is going to look like. You really want to be, hopefully, leaving everything behind to follow Christ, Mm-hmm. So I felt like I had that coming in, like, okay, Lord, whatever it is that you want, whatever my life looks like, you never know where you're going to go, what it's going to look like. So definitely thankful for my family growing up, but kind of ready for whatever the Lord had.
I love how supportive they are of your, of your priesthood. Especially here at Faustina, they're really supportive. What point did you tell your parents about your discernment to become a priest?
Yeah. So I remember my mom, so this was right after the silent retreat. I think I came back from that retreat, and I told my mom, like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about priesthood. And I thought, like, my parents, super Catholic, very supportive of the church. I thought they would both say like, oh, this is awesome, we have a son who's a priest. Instead, they were both like a little bit, kind of cautious, and my mom
more reserved towards.
Yeah, my mom was like, okay, wow. How do you feel about the celibacy thing? Like, you can't get married, and
you think that's what they thought about number one.
Yeah,
He's had a couple of
everybody
girlfriends.
does,
And
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And again, especially with my mom, it was out of like love and care for me. Like
Of
she didn't
course.
want me to be like lonely my whole life, you know? So and I remember her telling me, I just want you to be happy, you know? And so a lot of love and care for me, and concern, right? When I told my dad, it was funny. He said, well, I always wanted a son who was a priest, but I didn't want it to be you.
Really?
And I didn't even know at the time what that meant.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, I was like, interesting. I don't know. And then it wasn't until like a little bit later I circled back to him. I said, hey, when you said that, what did you mean? And he said he just felt like we connected a lot, you know, and he kind of felt like if I was going to be a priest, he would kind of lose me.
Uh-huh.
And what's kind of fascinating, I think the opposite's been true. Like I think me being a priest has brought me closer to my family in a lot of ways, you know, that I think has been really positive. That maybe if I was as a lawyer, you know, I might not have that same connection with them as I do, you know. Because yeah, certainly as a celibate man, those relationships with your families are really important relationships to cultivate, you know, and special to carry through your life.
So what kind of access do you have to your family now that you're a priest?
Yeah, so because I'm a Dawson priest, right? You know, with Houston, the kind of one thing you're probably guaranteed is you're going to be in Houston the rest of your life. You know, so the fact that I have family here means I'll probably never be more than an hour and a half, 2 hours away from them. As a diocesan priest, we're not like in a religious order that's going to like control our interactions with our families. You know, so obviously it'd be inappropriate. Like if I was like living at my parents' house and like commuting in the mornings to the parish, that would be a problem. And it might probably be weird if they were driving over here for daily mass every day. So there's a healthy separation, you know, just like you would have if you were a married man. But, you know, on my day off, about every other week, I'll go home on a Friday and stay there in the evening, come back in the morning, and I get to see them, and I'll get to see my other brothers and my nieces and my nephews a lot of times.
Did that factor into your decision to become a diocesan priest?
Yeah,
your
great
family?
question. You know, I didn't think about it, my family, too much specifically in terms of my discernment long term. A lot of it was just kind of prayer, like, Lord, where are you calling me? And I went to visit a religious community for 5 days up in, I think it was up in Nebraska. And it was a great order, and I enjoyed my time there, but I didn't feel like when I left, like, oh, I need to be here. It was just kind of like, oh, okay. And the diocese for me always was like, I did have a real draw, like to be, you know, part of like the church in Houston, like the people here, and like to be a priest for this land. You know, I always felt that. So the fact that I was close to my family was just kind of a nice bonus. And the Lord provides what you need, because it has been a huge gift to be close to my family. And I'm super thankful that throughout my life, you know, a good chunk of it, I should have a lot of family members to like be able to talk to and support and be supported by.
So you're at this point of you deciding to become a priest, you're discerning. How much time are you given to pretty much be, you know, after that talk with Father Dad, how much time passes before you move forward to the next
actually
steps?
Go to the seminary?
Yes.
It was probably like 8 months.
Okay.
It was 8 months, yes.
And what were you doing during that time?
So I finished out my senior year of college, graduated, then we had the summer, basically. We took that trip. So a lot of that was just like prayer and preparation and just kind of getting everything ready, you know, to kind of move forward. And
what do you say is that one point where you say, okay, this is it, 100%? You know, you tell your family, you tell the ex-girlfriend, you tell all your friends, this is going to happen 100%. What point did that happen?
I'm going to seminary?
Yes.
You know, I don't know if there was a specific moment. Like after the Dove experience, I felt pretty comfortable with Father Dad, finished the application process. But a lot of sermon is kind of taking that next step, you know, And I certainly have had a lot of peace about, you know, when I got accepted to the seminary, I felt peace about that, and felt peace about going and trying that first year and see how it went.
So getting accepted into the seminary, you said that there's a whole bunch of requirements, the essay with, you know, your life story. What else did they require you to submit?
Yes, the essay, that full psychological evaluation, references from like a few people in your church, a letter from your pastor, a lot of academic stuff. They wanted all that for their records and also for the college that we were going to attend.
Did they ever show you the results of the psychological evaluation?
You know, we talked to her about it. To the psychologist about it. The main thing I remember is I've minimized it now, but it's still there sometimes. I have like a speech impediment called rhoticism, where it's pretty hard to sometimes say R-controlled vowels. Like even in this interview, there's a couple of times I've said my R's kind of like W's. And so like if I talk a little bit too fast or I'm kind of tired, like it comes out more.
I've never noticed that.
You never noticed?
Never noticed
okay,
it.
I'm glad. I've worked pretty hard the last few years to minimize as much as possible. Because when I was like in middle school, it was pretty bad. It's pretty
What
rough.
does it sound like? If you don't mind.
Yeah. Like instead of Rudy, it's like Woody.
Okay.
Hey, Woody.
Okay. So
Like the R's get softened.
so it sounds like a little kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So like hard work, if I'm not careful, it's hard work. Like basically.
Okay.
So I have to
You sound like you're from a certain, I'm trying to pinpoint what particular area of the United States people speak like that.
Some people have asked if I was from Boston.
Boston, maybe.
I got that when I was younger. And I was listening to a video the other day of a guy who was some part of the UK he was from. And it sounded a lot like how I used to talk. So all the time I would get people asking like where I was from, like in middle school and early high school.
Because you had that impediment.
Yeah. Which was fine. You know, girls kind of thought it was cute and they thought I had an accent, you know, wasn't bad. And then actually funny, when I entered seminary, then one of the guys told me this later. One of the guys I entered with, he heard I was from Nassau Bay. And he thought that was like some place in the Bahamas, and I had an accent. He was like, "Yeah, Nassau Bay." He's from David Michael from Nassau Bay. He thought I was like some foreign guy that they brought in, which is kind of cool.
So is this a lifelong thing that you've been working on, seeing a speech therapist?
So it's interesting because it was noticeable, but it was never so bad. Like people couldn't understand me. So I remember we went to a place. And it was one of the places at the schools, like the public schools. And we pay taxes, so we could still use the resources.
Of course.
But they said it wasn't. They evaluated me and said it wasn't bad enough to where like I should actually take one of the spots because there were kids who like could not talk.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't really do much more about it until seminary, which is when the psychologist said like, "Hey, maybe you might want to just work on that." And then
that came up in the evaluation.
Yeah. I just mentioned that because it was like the main thing she mentioned. She was like, "So you have a speech impediment?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And it was funny because when I got to seminary, the priest there who got the psychological was like, he got her comments and he was like, "I think you're fine. Like I can't hear. I don't think it's a problem."
I never would have known.
And then the next priest, like a year later, said that he actually did think it was a problem. So then I went and did see a speech therapist for a while at the seminary. And, the main thing was just me understanding what words I need to concentrate on a little bit better. And once I kind of figured out what I need to be doing, it helped a lot to where now it's mostly been minimized. So, yeah.
Anything else pop up in that psychological evaluation?
I'm sure there were things, but I mean, those tests are pretty incredible. But that was the only thing I really remember us talking about a lot. But it's funny you bring that up because I've been thinking recently I probably have like rights to that. Like I kind of want to go back and ask and go look at it and see, kind of you learn a little bit more about yourself. I'm sure hopefully I'm at a place like, mature. I'm mature enough now where I could take whatever it was. But
what do you what types of questions do you remember from that test?
It was stuff like when you get angry, do you want to break things? She asked me to draw a picture of like a happy family. And then you do like the ink blot test, of course, where like you say whatever you see in the ink, that kind of stuff. It was interesting.
There were no points where she was like,
Not that I remember. No, I don't.
Do you get extremely conscious when they do that test?
Not really. I mean, I didn't feel too crazy. If a lot of that stuff, honestly, it was like, okay, God, this is me. If you're calling me, work it out. If it's not me, work it out, so I was never too nervous about it.
So after that test, and then after the letters and everything, you submit all of that. Is there a final interview? Is there a final meeting?
Yeah, so you hopefully have been talking with the vocation director a lot, so he knows you pretty well. And then you come before the admissions board, which is like a few sisters and a few priests, and they ask you a bunch of questions on these different things.
Was Father Dad on that board?
Yeah. I don't know if he votes or not, but and then they vote basically to send you on or not. And I went downstairs and they came out and said like, okay, you're good to go, like you're accepted. And then the cardinal then has to sign off on that. Yeah, so they vote, and then the cardinal gets the vote, and then you're accepted. And then you get accepted to the archdiocese, and then you also get accepted to the seminary that you're going to go, which for me was going to be in Dallas for a couple of years. So you get accepted there, and then you're kind of ready to move forward.
So how long of a time are you given before you move to Dallas from when they told you, okay, you're going to Dallas? How much lead time are you given?
I don't even remember, honestly. It was kind of a blur. Like It depends on the guy. So because I kind of had taken a break from the application process, it was probably like a month for me. But there's some guys who get accepted like, 8 months in advance, and they kind of know where they're going. So
why were you sent to Dallas? Is there a decision that was made that, could they have sent you somewhere else, or do they just send everybody from our archdiocese to Dallas?
To start out, generally you go to Dallas or Louisiana. One of those two. There's two collegiate seminaries there, basically. So I don't know what their criteria is. I've heard things, but I wouldn't want to make an assessment on it. I do remember Father Dat telling me they were probably going to send me to Louisiana. And then for whatever reason, when it came out, I was going to Dallas, which is fascinating because that's a whole different set of relationships and people you're going to meet, people you're going to talk to, and a different context for formation. So,
okay. So when you go to Dallas, are you alone or are you with a group of other guys?
Yeah. So there were probably 7 or 8 guys from Houston who went out to study there. And in the house total, there were probably 90 guys from a lot of different dioceses all over the United States, pretty much.
Did you guys know each other, that group from Houston? Previously?
We had a couple of meetings together, basic orientation stuff, but didn't know each other too well. Yeah. And then there were guys who already were at the seminary from Houston too, who'd been in a few years. So it ended up being a pretty good group of us.
Was Father Ryan with you there in that group?
So he went to Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of strange. I didn't really get to know him very well until I came back to Houston for seminary. And then our paths kind of crossed again.
How about Deacon Joseph?
Deacon Joseph came in the second year. Yeah.
So you were already in there.
Yeah. So I was a year ahead of him. So when he came in, I knew him over that summer before he entered because we just had hung out a couple of times and things like that. But
how about Father Matthew?
Father Matthew Suniga, I think he was, I don't think I knew him till I came to St. Mary's in Houston. I think he was 2 years ahead of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in Dallas and you're taking college classes. Are you taking law classes? Was that the course that you decided to pursue? Because you said you had thought of...
Yeah, no. So the way it works is if you already have a college degree, you do just a lot of philosophy, basically.
Okay.
If you don't have a college degree, you do 4 years of college and get a degree in philosophy. So because I had my degree, it was weird because I was 18, so I was living with the freshmen, guys in like the first semester of college. But I was taking classes with the guys who graduated. So they were 23 to like 30, a lot of guys who were
So
older.
you're the young one again.
Yeah, so again, I'm the young one there. But it was kind of best of both worlds because I hung out with the guys who were my age. We had a lot of fun on that hall, but I was able to take classes with the older guys, so it worked out pretty well.
You got to network with a lot of deacons and priests that are all around the area now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that you build a lot of those connections with guys and who are ministering in different areas.
So how long were you there in Dallas?
2 years.
Just 2 years, but normally it would have been 4.
Yeah, so if a guy hadn't been to college, it would be 4 years. So like for Deacon Joseph, he did 4 years there. And actually when I got, my spiritual director at the time had said like, maybe you should not even go into seminary yet because you're so young for your education level. They might have you go extra time.
Okay.
So he even thought it might have been a good idea to go to law school and then go into seminary. I did feel like God was calling me in, at that time. So, but there were conversations when I was at the seminary about me staying 2 extra years to get like a master's degree in something, so I could get older. Which I prayed a lot with and had peace about if that's what they wanted. But they ended up after those 2 years voting me on to move on. So
master's degree, huh?
That's what they thought about.
What would you have taken your master's in, if ever?
They said probably philosophy would have been like the most like realistic thing, the most helpful thing in ministry. They basically want you to have philosophy just to kind of understand the world and the human person, and then to take theology after that.
Why do you think they suggested that you stay there longer? Is it mainly just because of your age?
I hope so.
Or they wanted you to go through the entire 4-year process to get that full experience?
I think, it would just be my age, So again, all the other 18-year-olds there were going to be there for 4 years. So for me to leave at 20 was just kind of like...
Yeah, you're the exception to the rule.
Yeah, it was a little bit unprecedented. But it's interesting because the way it worked out, like Deacon Joseph went for 4 years there, but because he went to Rome, you don't do pastoral year like we do.
Yes.
And he's pretty young too, so he'll be ordained almost as young as I was, just kind of the way it worked out with him. So
okay, so after those 2 years, that's your pastoral year.
Oh, actually, so you do this 2 years, then you come back to Houston,
Okay.
and you do 2 years of theology. Then
Okay.
you go on pastoral year, then another year of theology, then you become a deacon, another year of theology, then you become a priest.
Wow. Okay.
It's confusing.
Yes, it is. So 2 years in Dallas,
Yeah, 2 to 4 years of philosophy,
2 to
depending
4
on
years.
Yeah,
This is a long process.
7 to 9 years. Yeah.
Wow. And then you come back to Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And then where are you? What parish are you at that point when you come back to
So,
Houston?
That summer, we went to, after Dallas, we went to a program in Omaha, Nebraska, a spirituality program for 10 weeks. And
Okay.
you come back, and at that point, you're not really actually at a parish. I mean, you're full time at the seminary
Okay.
for those for the next year. And then that next summer is when I came back here to St. Faustina for 5 or 6 weeks, I guess it was, for like a summer in the parish. Because at that point, my discernment each year in seminary, I was kind of like, I just still wasn't sure until toward the end that this is what God wanted. So usually that summer you would go to like Mexico or Costa Rica to study Spanish. And I remember asking like, can I be in a parish? Because like I'm still trying to figure out like if this is the path for me, and like studying Spanish, if I can do that later when I'm more confident about my vocation, that would be good. So I really want to be in a parish to figure out, if parish life is really where I'm being called.
So there was still some doubt there.
Yeah, there was a lot of doubt until the end of pastoral year, which was 5 years in. Yeah.
Okay, so at that point, when you come back to Houston, do you call up the ex-girlfriends? And I know I'm hammering
I'll
this
go
in a
back
lot.
to there. No.
Just to see if you're 100% sure.
No, I was not doing that. But there definitely was after that first year in seminary, I remember there was actually a point that next summer, especially because we were talking about maybe staying 2 extra years. I was kind of like, if that's what God wants, okay, but I'm not really like super enthusiastic about just 2 extra years of seminary. I thought about like taking some time off and doing something else. And there was even one point where like, I think I told my dad, I don't think I'm going to go back. And he was like, okay, that's fine. My parents were like so supportive, and I almost didn't. And then like, there was like a little tug. It was like, no, you go back. And I was like, okay. So we loaded up the car and I went back to Dallas. And, I love being at the seminary with the, like hanging out with the guys. Like there was a blast. There was just some awesome memories of us hanging. I mean, that's having like, stupid stuff, having Nerf wars in the hallways and guys doing pranks, and
Like what kinds of pranks did you guys do?
Early on, I wasn't involved in this one, but a big group of the freshmen went to the seniors hallway and put out like 2,000 little cups filled with water all in the hallway. It was crazy.
2,000 cups of water.
I think it was like 2,000. They bought a bunch of sleeves of cups. And they spent a couple hours filling. What's annoying is I don't even think it went that well. Like the guys just knocked them over and like moved on. I don't think they put enough water in them to really make a difference. There was that, and then guys used to come to the showers and they would take one of the knobs off, either the hot water or the cold water.
Oh.
And if it was the hot water knob, you could still take a shower, which is uncomfortable. If it was the cold water knob, like you'd burn yourself. You couldn't take a shower at all. So we would just go to their halls and take showers because it was super annoying. There was
a lot of pranks like that happen a lot, huh?
Guys, this one was kind of edgy. Guys would set up, we each had like our own prayer cubby.
Okay.
With like, you have your stall and you have your breviary and your Bible and everything. Guys would like set up Legos and action figures, and other guys, so they'd show up for prayer and it'd be a bunch of like Legos. That was a little bit too edgy probably in the chapel, but that one was pretty funny.
Did you ever prank the priests?
No, that
was off limits.
That would have been next level. We didn't do that. But I think the priests mostly kind of thought it was funny. They didn't really have a problem with the pranks.
They're used to having young guys, right?
Yeah. There was one time we picked up a guy's while he was sleeping on his mattress. We picked up his mattress and put it in the hallway, and he didn't wake up. It was awesome. He was just there. He just woke up in the morning.
How many of you were there?
There were probably like 4 or 5 of us, I think. I was just amazed he didn't wake up. That was a pretty solid prank. It didn't hurt anybody, but it must have been weird for him to wake up in the hallway. Yeah, that one was great.
What time did you guys do that? Was it like in the middle of the night, or?
I don't remember. He might have gone to bed early or something.
He must have been super tired.
That might have been what it was. Yeah.
Did anybody play any pranks on you?
I'm trying to think. I don't think there were a lot played on me. Since I've come to this parish, there have been a lot of pranks played on me, but before at seminary, there wasn't.
What kind of pranks did they pull on you here?
You haven't heard about this? Man, when I was getting ready for my birthday, like in the weeks leading up to my birthday, First, they filled my office with balloons.
I remember that one.
Balloons.
Yes.
Then
That was all
they
over social media.
covered a part of my wall in my office with 100 pictures of me.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Which was crazy. Father Dad apparently was helping him do
that
all
headshot
this.
of you with the...
Yeah. And he was letting him in. And then there was one where they put like, they gave Father Dad something to put in the rectory that was like, it was like this scary picture that said like, the calm before the storm. It kind of freaked me out. Then they covered my car in a bunch of sticky notes, tons of sticky notes. And they put an air horn underneath my desk chair. So when I sat down on it like, there were some good ones.
Did you jump up at that one or?
No, well, it's funny because it didn't like go off perfectly. It was more like a sound.
Oh.
And so I was just like, what's happening to my chair? It was like exploding. Then I realized it was the air horn. So yeah, we have a very prankster parish.
So you're at so you go back from the college. Let's go back to college. All right. In Dallas. What was your life like there in Dallas? Were you like a regular college student? Did you have a lot of freedom to go around? What was your schedule like?
Yeah. So, we had a pretty structured prayer schedule. So we had morning prayer 6:30, followed by mass, breakfast, and then everybody had different class schedules. We took class at the University of Dallas, which was like right by the seminary. It was a great setup to have. So guys had different schedules. Like I said, I was taking classes with the older guys, just like straight philosophy courses, basically, with some theology, mostly philosophy. And so we go on campus to do that. We'd have lunch, and then we'd have evening prayer together and meditation time. And then throughout the week, you'd have spiritual direction, formation classes. And then Sundays, we had a lot of liturgies and things like that. So there's definitely some college, and we had some freedom. We would play in the intramural sports on the campus, which was cool. We played football and basketball and soccer and everything. We'd have seminary teams, softball, that kind of stuff. We could go on campus for certain events, but we had... we obviously had like responsible hours, curfew times.
Did you have to get permission to go on campus all the time? Were there forms to fill out or anything like that? Or?
No, not during the days,
Okay.
Like I said, if you wanted to be out past like 11 on a weekday, or I think it was, you had to get permission for that. But if you were just, getting your studies done, you probably weren't going to do that. And on Saturdays, you were pretty free to do stuff. So guys would hang out with students sometimes, or go see their families and that kind of thing.
What about college parties? How does that work?
Hopefully nobody was going to college parties. Hopefully that wasn't happening.
But there's no hard rule that you can't interact, period, or
no.
Okay.
In fact, I would say it was kind of healthy, I think, for guys to be around, young guys, young girls, to be around that. That's probably helpful for your discernment.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
There's some pretty girls on campus, so you kind of had to make sure you were doing what you need to be doing.
How does that work with the girls on campus?
You just have to make sure you're smart about it and you're careful. It's good to have friends, certainly. And then guys who, have good relationships and also, there were guys who left and dated girls, so that
discerned out because
discerned out. Well, they used to send the guys, at University of Dallas where I took classes, there was a semester where everybody goes to Rome basically. And the seminarians used to do that Rome semester. But the story is like, so many guys apparently decided to leave that semester and got girlfriends that they decided to stop sending the seminarians to Rome and just keep them here. That was because there was no formation happening really when you're over there. So yeah, it was a really positive experience and a really good setup, I think, with classes. They're challenging. Classes were tough, but they were good.
So in terms of, interacting with girls during that point, do you tell them right away, "Oh, I'm a seminarian"? Do you wear a T-shirt that says seminarian?
We didn't have to wear our seminary shirts, but they were cool. And we had some really sweet dry fit ones that said HTS, Holy Trinity Seminary, on them. So we wore it most of the time. And honestly, we traveled in packs. Like you could tell the groups of seminarians going around because we all came from the seminary together.
Okay.
So it was pretty easy to spot. It wasn't something you were hiding from anybody.
So no guys walking up to you meet a girl, you're talking to a girl, and no guy goes, "She's a seminarian."
Hopefully, yeah. There was transparency from the beginning about the fact that it would be a platonic relationship. Yeah.
Was it awkward talking to girls on campus that you were a seminarian? Were they amazed? What was their reaction when you tell them that you were a seminarian?
I think most of them got pretty used to the fact that like, oh yeah, the seminary is here, so there's a lot of guys on campus. I think that was kind of part of what they were doing too. They recognized that. And you also would have guys who, started at the school and then ended up joining the seminary, just stay in school, but then would move to the seminary and enter formation. So
nice. You'd hang out with them, you'd talk to them, and then then some of them would join. That's pretty cool.
And you had guys who go the other direction too. So, I think it was a pretty healthy combo.
So when we spoke with Deacon Joseph White, he said he used the term that I'd never heard before, chalice chippers. Are there a lot of chalice chippers that you run into?
Yeah, that was something guys always said. It was like chalice chippers or cassock chasers or... I did not encounter a lot of girls who I thought were out to like get a seminarian to marry. I just didn't see that.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty healthy, good interactions. And, I didn't necessarily see that, but there were times, like guys would leave and they'd get married to people, and that's how God can work too. That's okay.
It's not meant for them.
Yeah.
Were there a lot of guys that discerned out?
So
among your group of friends?
Yeah. So in my class, again, the guys I were living with were the younger guys, but the guys who I entered with academically, there were 14 of us from different dioceses who entered that seminary. And by Christmas, only 7 of us were left, which is crazy, attrition rate.
Is that the normal rate?
That was a little bit odd. Like, I think even when that happened, some of the vocation director was like, whoa, what just happened? Like, that was a little too quick. Again, these guys were older. I think they had a pretty good sense quickly.
Okay.
Like, this is not for me, so they would leave. And then I think by the end of the next semester, a couple more left. Of the guys I was living with on the hall, they were younger, so it took a little bit more time, some of them still left. But I've heard the stats are like 40%, I think, get ordained of guys who enter.
Okay.
Which over the course of 7-9 years, that's not bad.
No, not bad at all. So let's talk about finances in terms of you being in college there. Now, I understand that it's sort of like a loan if you discern out.
Yeah.
But if you stay in, all of that is paid for? Is that how that works?
Yes, if you go in through and become a priest, they're not going to ask you to pay back those loans. Like, you're obviously serving them with what you received. But then you don't sign anything. But they do ask that if you leave and you're working other jobs and things like that, and like you're benefiting, to some extent from the education you received, that you would try to pay back at least the first 2 years.
What about your daily expenses? How does that work?
So you get like $150, $160 stipend each month.
Okay.
To kind of pay for that stuff. Obviously, if you've got, insurance for a car and that kind of thing, that doesn't go a super long way. A lot of us had family and stuff helping us out with that, which was a real gift. So I think it tends to work out for everybody. If you have certain needs, there's people who can definitely help with that. The Knights of Columbus often tend to support you with checks periodically. They're super generous. So that $150 is pretty great. Some dioceses don't really give you that much. So we're really blessed here.
Are there any priests that really struggle with finances during that period? Or seminarians?
I think for some guys, it's a challenge just to make sure they're living kind of within the means. You shouldn't need a lot of other things. If all the food is provided for, and obviously your lodging and everything. So hopefully if you budget everything well, you should be okay. But yeah, there's resources for guys who are struggling. So.
Okay, so it's not a difficult life being a seminarian in terms of financial.
Yeah, I don't think they want you to be like struggling financially because you can't have another job. They don't want you to have another job. So they don't want to set up an environment where like guys are, not able to buy, toothpaste. So they want to help.
So for you come back to Houston, and then that first year after, what did you say you were doing during that year?
That first year after in seminary, I was working at the vocations office.
Okay.
Helping out there, and then also helping out at a parish, kind of doing both those at times. So I was with Father Dad again in the vocations office then, which was great.
That's pretty cool how you're back with Father Dad now.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing, honestly, how it worked out. So we did a lot of stuff I made a lot of videos that summer for the vocations office. Another buddy of mine is awesome with graphic design. So he'd redesign the website and took a bunch of pictures and Photoshop stuff. So it was a fun summer.
Then after that, what happened?
Then I went back to seminary for that second year.
Seminary here in Houston.
That was The second year was in Dallas, and the third year was back here in Houston.
Okay, so after you're back here in Houston, after that third year, what's the next step?
Third year, well, another year. So I spent a summer in the parish, St. Faustina.
Yes, okay.
Which is great.
Okay.
And then the fourth year at the seminary here in Houston. And then after that is when you go into your pastoral year, where you spend an entire year at a parish.
And where was that?
That was at St. Martha's in Kingwood with Monsignor Borski and Father Richard McNeely, which is interesting.
Monsignor Borski was
my pastor for a pastoral year.
And that's cool how he's helping us out here.
It's pretty amazing that like Father Dad I was with at a parish, Monsignor Borski I was with at the parish, and now all three of us are priests together at a parish. I mean, it's kind of insane how God works.
Yeah, that's amazing. And
it's
then
awesome.
Even, Deacon Joseph White, you were in the seminary with him, and then you guys catch up again here at St. Faustina for a few weeks.
Exactly.
Or a few months. Like,
yeah,
was it 4 months?
For almost 3 months. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty awesome how God's worked it out. I just felt super blessed. Yeah, to be with Monsignor Borski and Father Dad and have Joseph here this summer was cool. And Deacon Houston, we were only in seminary a little bit together, the way things overlapped, but it's awesome to have him too. And then also Father Richard McNeely was the parochial vicar, the assistant priest at St. Martha's, and he's the vocations director now. So it's funny because actually my last year in seminary, so he was like the priest at the parish when I was on pastoral year, and we were in seminary together for a year when he was a deacon. And then when I was a deacon, he was like my vocations director, which is like really fascinating how it all works out.
That is so cool. So at what point do you get assigned to a parish?
For pastoral year?
Okay.
For pastoral year, is that what you mean? Yeah. So they just kind of, you don't really know when you're going to hear it. Just sometime in the spring before you go, they just tell you like, hey, you're going to this parish, and then you start there in the fall.
So you don't have any choice whatsoever. You can't give them a list of, here's my number 1 choice, number 2 choice. No.
I think they ask you like, what kind of parish you think you want to be in? But I don't know if it's because like they're going to put you in that parish, or they just kind of want to kind of know where you're at.
Okay, so after that year, what happens next?
Yeah, so for me going into that year, honestly, I was probably like 50-50 on discernment.
Really? Still?
Yeah. So that was 4 years in, going to my 5th year. And I remember telling God, like, if this doesn't go well, and I just don't feel a lot of peace about parish life, then like I probably need some more time to figure this out. How old were you
at this time?
So I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah. But I said, hey, if this is a good fit, I feel a lot of peace about this, then like I think we're good to go. So, and it was just an amazing experience. It was so great to be with the people and all these incredible moments, whether it was funerals, weddings, or just hanging out with the youth group, playing dodgeball with the kids at the school. There were so many moments where I thought like, yeah, I could give my life to this. Like this would be worth it, and you go from like in seminary, you're celibate, right? You're looking to like a whole life of celibacy, and you want to give the Lord everything, but you're also kind of wondering like, who am I celibate for? Am I celibate to take this test? Like this doesn't really add up. And finally on that pastoral year, being with the people, it was like, okay, these are the people I'm going to be celibate for. Like these are the people worth giving my life to, And so to kind of be able to see that and to have it be real, I came out of that year feeling very strong. Like, okay, I could do this with my life, and let's keep going, make it happen.
So when you were at that point of being 50-50, did you think, okay, well, maybe I could be a deacon? Were you kind of swaying between those thoughts?
Being a deacon, you become a transitional deacon before you become a priest.
Yes.
That's kind of there, but I never...
But being a permanent deacon.
Permanent deacon was never like a huge on my radar.
Okay.
Again, like confessions and mass was like my main draw to ministry. And as a deacon, you can't do those things. So that was kind of more my focus. Obviously, like if I was going to become a priest, marriage would have been, huge on my radar.
Yes. So at what point did you start going from being 50-50 to 60-40, 70-30? At what point did you say, this is it, 100%?
Yeah. Gradually throughout that year, I would say it happened. There wasn't like a specific moment, but there were lots of small moments where I was like, wow, like to be a priest that's incredible. And to see Monsignor Borski's example and Father Richard's, and to see what they were able to do for people, and to see how they were loved by the people, it was very encouraging. So yeah, lots of moments throughout that year when I just thought like, hey, I could give my life to this, And so by the end of that year, I just wanted more time in the parish. I wanted to be with the people more. So coming back to seminary for that 3rd year was really good actually, because it was like, okay, like we're going to be in the parish again in a couple of years as a priest. So like, let's make the most of this time and really focus on these classes. And look toward like a bright future.
So 2 more years, did you say? After
Yeah,
that?
2 more years after that. 1 year just kind of as a seminarian, and then the last year as a deacon. Yeah,
As a deacon. And then you were a deacon. Where were you a deacon?
I was a deacon at Most Holy Trinity.
Okay.
In Angleton, and that was kind of cool too because the pastor there had actually been a seminarian on pastoral year at my home parish growing up.
Nice.
Which was incredible. So like just like I did my pastoral year at St. Martha's, he did his pastoral year at St. Paul's in Nassau Bay when I was probably like 14. He's an awesome drummer, Father Victor Perez. He played drums for retreats, and I was like, hey, this is a cool guy, And so the fact that they assigned me to be like we have 150 parishes in the Archdiocese and 400 priests.
Yes.
The fact that I keep getting assigned with these guys who like I have kind of like a some type of like history with is pretty cool. So that was a fun year hanging out with him and being a deacon there. Very different than St. Martha's. St. Martha's was about 6,000 families, a lot of big stuff happening. This was about 1,500 families, a little bit smaller out in Angleton. But I loved that too. I loved the pace of that and getting to know people and being with Father Victor. So a huge blessing.
Do you ever get to go back to those parishes?
Yeah. So I said Mass there a couple months after I'd been a priest, which was cool, a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
St. Martha's, I went and said Mass there too after I became a priest. Went and helped on one of their retreats, the confirmation retreats, a couple months ago. So yeah, definitely trying to keep those relationships and those connections and give back to the people who did so much for you.
So your year as a transitional deacon, at what point do you find out which parish you're going to go to?
Yeah, so obviously you're talking about it throughout the year with your guys, like, where do you think we're going to go? Like, I think maybe you're going to go here, and you're placing bets and everything. And they ask you meet with the personnel board, and they say, like, what kind of parish do you see yourself in? And you answer the question and everything, and you talk to them for a while. But you don't find out what parish you're going to be a priest at till the day before you get ordained.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So you go in for the rehearsal for the Mass the day before, 24 hours before. Mm-hmm. And before the rehearsal, the cardinal calls you in and gives you a letter. And it's just you and him, and you open up the letter, and it says where you're going, and you talk about it for a second, and then you go do the rehearsal, and you become a priest the next day, and then you start there a month later.
Why do they do that? Why do they tell you just the day before?
I don't know. I think part of it is like, that's kind of the tradition that we've developed here. Some places they tell you, guys, I knew other guys from other dioceses at the seminary who found out months before where they knew. It was
really?
Public information.
Wow.
And then some places they announce it at the end of the ordination Mass. So you literally get ordained before you know where you're going. Then they say like, okay, and Father Dan Michael's going to this place, and you're going, So everybody kind of has a different system. I think part of it is like, there's always things changing,
That's true.
You move somebody, it moves this person, guys maybe have health problems or stuff, so the more time they can have to figure it out, probably the better. So I think they kind of just give themselves to the day before, and for us, again, it's not like you move in the next day. You have a month, off. So you're kind of priest honeymoon, a month off to do stuff. So the parish and you have time to figure out the logistics of it.
If it weren't St. Faustina, where do you think you would have been?
Oh,
did you have a parish that you were eyeing and crossing your fingers? I hope they send me here. Or
no, there definitely wasn't one that I was like, I really tried to be. I was just so pumped to be a priest, man. Honestly, I was just so excited, and it's weird not knowing where you're gonna go because it's like you're getting married, but you don't know who your wife's gonna be. It's like you're committing, but you also don't like what she looks like or where she is. So, you
think they could make a reality show out of that with priests, seminarians,
parish match or something, So I really didn't have a preference. I figured it would be a slightly bigger parish because you have to go somewhere that they need a second priest.
Yes,
a tiny parish probably isn't going to have 2 priests when we have huge parishes that need 2 or 3 priests. So, there was a short list of like 8 or 9 that we kind of thought were feasible, and St. Faustina was definitely on that list.
Were you making bets with the other?
I mean, there was never money exchange, but we definitely were taking we were definitely saying, I think it's going to be this, and hoping we were right. And a few of our guesses were definitely correct, kind of panned out. But it was interesting because when I met with Cardinal, he gave me the letter and he said, St. Faustina is the youngest parish in the diocese and you're the youngest priest. So sounds like a good fit, So
it is a great fit.
It's been fun. I've been so thankful.
Opening that letter, did it feel like, you were opening like a college admission letter or something?
Did I get accepted? Well, it's funny because you're going somewhere.
That's
right?
true.
They're not going to be like, congratulations, we could not find a place that would take you. Turns out nobody wants you. We don't really need priests that bad. No. But it was kind of surreal. Yeah, like again, like this is the context for my priesthood for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
You know, these are the people, these are my experience, where I'm going to be living, what I'm going to be doing. So it's pretty wild to open it up. But I was super pumped to hear I was coming to St. Faustina, that'd be with Father Dad again. And, you know, obviously I was here 5 years ago for a few weeks, but it's like a totally different parish now. You know, it's changed and grown so much.
So do you get to talk to your family anytime during this process? Do you get to call them up right after you open the letter, or you're not supposed to tell anybody? How does that work?
So at that point, it is public. As soon as they tell you, you can let people know. So I remember texted Father Dat pretty quick, and I said, "Hey man, I'm excited to be coming out there." And he said, "Hey, yeah, we're excited to have you."
So he already knew.
Yeah, so he knew. But yeah, and then I texted my family pretty quick, and then I think somebody posted on Facebook, so I was getting messages from people. So yeah, it's exciting.
What was the reaction?
I mean, obviously all positive, right? Everybody's, I don't think I got any like, dang it, we heard you're coming. This is so disappointing.
Or anybody saying, we were hoping to get you here at our parish. We didn't get,
I
didn't
guess,
get any of those types of messages?
I don't think so. I remember somebody told me they were really, this was later, and we're close now, me and that person, but they said like, yeah, we were really hoping for Father Ryan. We heard it was you. We were very disappointed. And I was like, I totally understand that. Father Ryan would have been awesome to have. Yeah.
So you find out this becomes public, and then the following day you're ordained.
Yeah.
Tell me about your day.
It was amazing. Yeah. So all my family was there from the day before, and just being with them and was really awesome. And woke up that morning and drove down there with a priest friend of mine. He had vested me year before, old family friend, and you know, praying on the way up there and kind of praying before. And I mean, it's just surreal.
So the night
like,
before,
this is the day.
You're still with that parish that you've been with, or you're
I was
back
home.
at the
I was home at that point. Yeah, with my family. You know, there were a lot of guys who did different things, but I really wanted to be with my family during that time. And you know, some of them are coming from out of town, so the house was full. You know, and so being with them was great. And then getting the cathedral day of, you know, you serve as a seminarian, you serve all these ordinations, right? So like, each time you had this ordination, like you see the guys getting ready, you know? And it's so weird to be like that guy now. Like I'm getting ordained today, you know? And
in essence, it's like your wedding day.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's, you know, you've seen other people go through the process. You've seen other people get married.
Yep.
And now it's your turn.
Yeah. And there were 7 of us getting ordained, which is the most since 1986 for the Archdiocese. So the church was just packed, you know, it was packed, and the music was amazing. It was really beautiful. And we got to pick the music, and just walking in, seeing all the people, you know.
Who were you ordained with?
I was ordained with Father Ryan, obviously, Father Justin Cormy, he's at St. Ignatius, Father Ricardo Areola Gonzalez, who's at St. Bartholomew's nearby here, Kingsley Nwoku, who's St. Anthony of Padua, I believe it is, and Father Vincent Tran, who's over at Christ the Redeemer, and then Jose Alonso, who's at St. Helens.
Okay, and you said you remembered walking in?
Yeah, so I remember walking in, the ordination, like the music, you know, and all these people, and I really felt the Lord, like in my heart, say like, hey, David Michael, these are my people, right? This is my church, these are my people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a father for them. And today, they become your people. Like, I need you to be a father to them. These are your people now. And even though like I'm 25 years old and I'm still figuring out life and everything, I did feel so much like love for these people, and like a real deep feeling of like spiritual fatherhood. Like, these are the people I need to care for and like love throughout my life. And these are people I'm laying my life down for today. And yeah, immediately I got in my pew, my family was all there, and I just started crying. You know, I was bawling. Like, even my mom and dad, like, are you okay? You know, and I was just overwhelmed. Just like, there have been so many moments of prayer, you know, throughout seminary that were tough, that were hard. And it was just so many times where I was asking God, like, what do you want? Like, I'll do anything. I just want to know what you want. And to be able to come to that moment and to see how he'd been working my whole life to bring me there, there was just like so much peace and so much gratitude to be in that moment. And yeah, it was just beautiful.
So what did you think about in terms of the difficult moments? What was the most difficult thing that you thought about while you were there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it was almost like again, like I told you, like I almost didn't go back that first year of seminary. And the second and third year, I was like, it was questionable. And pastoral year was 50-50. And especially with celibacy, so many things where it's like, gosh, am I really going to do this? Am I really going to be celibate for the rest of my life? Am I going to give that up? And, a vocation, I think it's a fragile thing. A vocation's not like your fate. Like, oh, you got to end up doing it, you know? Especially in today's culture, in today's society, there were so many moments where I could have very easily, and almost did, choose something else. I would have chosen something good. I wouldn't have lived a horrible life. But there were a lot of opportunities I had to do something else, and yet like the Lord always was like faithful and always gave me what I needed when I needed, gave me the doves when I needed the doves, to keep me going. And so like in that moment, kind of thinking about everything, it's like, this was so close to not happening, I guess, in some sense. Like it would have been so easy for this never to happen. But the Lord, like in his patience and his gentleness and his kindness, kept working with me. And so the fact that like it is happening, is just, it's just incredible.
Was there one particular moment that you remember where you were the closest to calling it quits?
Yeah. So definitely that first year, I decided like not to go back basically. And again, I can't even explain like why I went back. It was like, why did I go back? Like, even looking back now, it's like, it would have been so easy to leave. And there were a couple moments like that where it was like, I think I'm not going to do this anymore. And then it was just like, I would just keep going. I can see the hand of God and it'd be like, come on, man, keep going, So yeah, that would probably be but there were a lot of other moments too, like that were close.
So all of that comes rushing in all at the same time while you're there.
Yeah.
You're seeing, the people of God, like you said, it's all coming in. Do you remember actually that day? Is it a blur? Do you remember it moment for moment? How does? Yeah.
So that I cried intensely at that moment, but I kind of got all the tears out. So for the rest of the ceremony, I was much more stable. I was good to go. And yeah, laying down, on the floor while they pray the litany of saints. I'm literally giving your life, laying down your life for the Lord. Is beautiful, and the bishop, the Cardinal Donato, putting chrism on your hands, consecrating your hands, was incredible. And yeah, right at the end, you turn around, you give everybody a blessing, and like you see, like, okay, this is the church, let's go. And so we finished that. I went over to the seminary. We did like first blessings, they call it, for a little while, but we had scheduled for my first mass to be that night.
Okay.
So I'd just been ordained, and just a few hours later, I was getting ready for my first mass. And that was at my home parish, St. Paul's. And we had 5 or 6 priests celebrating, and it was, all my friends and my family, all these people I'd grown up with. And it was funny because at the beginning of mass, I was thinking about joking and saying like, hey, good afternoon, I'm Deacon David Michael. I mean, Father David Michael, like as a joke. But I decided not to do that. I was like, that'd be kind of cheesy. And then I accidentally did it. Like I literally was like, I'd been saying Deacon David Michael so much. I was like, hey, I'm Father David Michael. And then everybody laughed,
For a year, that's why you've been...
I've been saying Deacon David Michael all the time. So it was kind of funny that happened at the beginning. And I usually, it's kind of a tradition in the church that for your first mass, you have like an older, more experienced priest like preach the homily, so you can just focus on the mass.
Yes.
But I mentioned the homily. I kind of decided, hey, I've been a priest since lunch. I got this. I got this.
A whole this many hours, right?
Exactly. I got this. So I did decide to preach, and then the reason why is because I felt like, how many other chances will I get to have all my friends and family there to get to talk to them about Jesus? This is a special moment right now. So I preached, and the mass was just really beautiful. And then afterwards, you a lot of times give first blessings. And I was there for like 2.5 hours after the mass, just giving blessings. It was just a long line, which that was amazing, that the people would even stay that long, And by the time like I finished with the blessing, the whole reception was like kind of done. They were out of food, but again, like when will I get to do that again, And the church does have like an ancient reverence for the a priest's first blessings, like his first year of priesthood. We consider those blessings to have like a special character. It's really beautiful. So that was just an incredible experience.
So that first mass that you do. Now let's talk about learning the mass. All the things that you've memorized to have to say. Is there a test, or do you run through it in front of a priest, or is it something you're just expected to know on your own?
Yeah, so it's a class we take. It's presidential leadership, they call it. It's essentially like how to preside over a mass well, and along with other sacraments. We do it for weddings, baptisms, everything. So you do it with a teacher and classmates watching you. They critique you, say you did it. You do different prayers and different variations of it depending on the situation. And then you do a video, English and Spanish, that you send in that they also critique. So they try to make sure we have a solid foundation. But obviously, they know that, especially going out of the seminary, you're the one making the decisions about how if you're gonna say mass correctly or not. So they hopefully have evaluated you to make sure you have the integrity to do what the church has asked.
So do they give you, like, during this class? Do they give you all of these different scenarios? In this situation, you're supposed to do that. In this situation, you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not crazy complicated. Like a wedding is probably the best one. If it's two Catholics, you do a certain thing. If it's a Catholic and a Christian, you do a certain thing. If it's a Catholic and a non-baptized person, non-Christian, you do something else. That's like something. For a baptism, similarly, depending on how many kids you have, you're going to do different stuff. And then for masses, depending on the liturgical season, you're going to have different things that you do. So yeah, they try to run through all that.
Okay. So do they have any like weird situations? Like what is the most odd situation that they've taught you about during the class for mass?
There's nothing that's like too crazy, I don't think.
Like what to do if a bird suddenly flies into the church or something? Or
they did tell us like,
some weird thing like that.
Yeah. If what is it? If like a fly goes into the chalice, like the blood, after you consecrate it, like what you're supposed to do. And like even some theologians have posited like, is the fly now, part of the blood or something. But it sounds like the best thing you can do is just either you can put it on this something called the sacrarium, which is like a special sink we have in the sacristy.
Okay.
That goes straight into the ground. It doesn't go into like the sewer system. It goes into the ground. So if you have like a situation like that, you can pour things down that, and then we consider that's kind of sacred because it goes straight in the ground. It's
okay.
Not consecrated. So
those types of rules and things you learn in the class. So you take tests on this.
So we never did like written tests on like mass. I don't think there was some basic things we went. No, I guess there was one simple test. A lot of it's in person though. Formation, being learned. So even throughout seminary, hopefully we're being formed liturgically, just in the everyday prayer that we're doing. The way liturgies are set up, they're teaching us how we're supposed to be doing it, right?
So do they have like a situation where somebody says a mock mass or a fake mass, and you're supposed to point out everything they did wrong? Do you do that type of thing?
It was never like set up by the priest like that, but we would all say mass and then we would critique each other.
Okay.
So at the end of the guy saying a mass, they call it a dry mass. He's not a priest, so it's fake.
Yes,
but they say the words and do this stuff. And so we would say like, hey, you missed this part, or like you really should try and.
So there's no video that you watch and there's 157 errors in this mass.
No, that doesn't ever happen. Yeah.
Okay. So you say that first mass as a priest. At what point do you go to St. Faustina? Is it the following day? You given a week or so? Or
yeah, so I said that was my first day of priesthood, said that mass. And then the next day I said a mass in another parish, which was cool, like locally, which was fun. And then throughout that week I had masses at different parishes. And then I had a wedding that next Saturday, then a wedding the next Saturday. And then I went and heard confessions at a Steubenville conference the week after that, which was cool. It was like five and a half hours of confession that day, which was awesome. And then the next weekend, I think, is when I started at St. Faustina.
Okay, but where were you living at that point?
So I was obviously traveling some for the weddings, but I was with my parents. Yeah.
Okay, so that's normal. You go back to your parents. It
depends on the guy. I think like Father Ryan probably was with his parents a lot. Some guys. Stayed at the seminary. I think some of that time they still had rooms there. Some guys moved into their parishes pretty early. It just depends.
Okay. But you had a lot of weddings and stuff to do.
Yeah.
You were reserved. You were booked.
I was booked. Yeah.
All right. So at this point, you find out you're going, you already know you're going to St. Faustina. You got about a month, you said before?
Yeah, it's a month.
Okay, so during that month, you're doing all these things, and then you check in with Father Dat, and then you start right away, or have you already had meetings with Father Dat?
So I emailed him about a couple things just to make sure we're on the same page with some stuff and get his thoughts. But besides that, it was, I think, a Tuesday morning I showed up. And he said, okay, show up at this time, So I got here probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock before Mass. And I can celebrate the Mass, and he preached and kind of introduced me to people. And then we immediately hopped in the confessional for about an hour and a half. That was like day one, because we have confessions Tuesday mornings. And then we went straight to a leadership meeting. We had that. Then we had lunch. We had a staff meeting. We had an interview for the youth minister. It was actually Katie, our youth minister. You probably interviewed her at some point. She, it was her interview that day. It was my first day at the parish, which is kind of
okay.
Cool. I was joking too in the interview. Like everybody was asking like her questions, and I was like, it was my first day, but I thought about being like, here at St. Faustina, we're trying to build a culture. Like, do you think you could fit in well with this culture? Just like it's my first day. I didn't say anything during that meeting. So that was like day one, was off to the races. With Mass and confessions and meetings. And
just hit the ground running.
Yeah, let's go.
Got a bunch of things to do. So confessions, speaking of, all the things that you have to do as a priest. So confessions and weddings, do you remember each and every first one that you've done?
Yes, my first wedding was actually as a deacon. Because you can do weddings for they don't have a Mass, basically, as a deacon. So when I was transitioning, I did a wedding for a friend of mine who, she had, we'd been all service together since we were like 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool to get to do her wedding. So that was cool. I think pretty much everything I probably remember, like the first one. They kind of stack up pretty quick. But
were there any things that you didn't do as a deacon that you did, that you could have done as a deacon, but then you didn't get around to doing it until you became a priest, like baptisms?
Not really. So I did quite a few baptisms as a deacon. Baptized my nephew as a deacon, which was cool. But I think I was able to exercise most of my diaconal faculties.
Was there anything that you were really looking forward to doing as a priest?
Obviously saying Mass. I mean, that's the source and summit of it. But
aside from
I've always had a real passion for confessions. I feel like that's so much of how we make saints, is like through the sacrament of confession, because it gives you a chance, obviously, to receive God's forgiveness, His healing, and then to evaluate your life and say, how can I do better in the future? So I've experienced so much grace from that. And our patron saint of parish priest is St. John Vianney, and he's known for hearing tons of confessions. So it's like, hey, if I want to be a saint as a parish priest, hearing lots of confessions is probably a safe route. So yeah, I definitely have a big heart for that.
So that first day of confessions here at St. Faustina, was that your first were those your first confessions, or had you done some during that month?
No, I'd done quite a few. Okay. Yeah. I'd been helping out. A few different parishes had events that they needed help with, so I tried to be available for that.
Okay. So now that you're here at St. Faustina, you're the parochial vicar. What exactly does it entail? What are the responsibilities of a parochial vicar?
Yeah. So really, whatever the pastor really wants you to help with is going to be your focus. Obviously, what can I do that other people can't do? It's going to be sacraments. That's why the diocese signed me here. So first responsibility certainly is going to be saying Mass. Hopefully preaching well. That's a big part of my time, is preparation for preaching. That's important. I don't preach for very long, but I prepare pretty long. And you're doing that, obviously on weekends, but multiple times during the week. In fact, you're preaching at weddings and funerals consistently. So homily prep is a pretty constant thing. Then outside of Mass, confessions, right? Like we were just saying, anointing. So half the week I take the emergency phone, and if we get a call for somebody who needs an anointing, either like immediately or they need it, pretty soon, I help out with that. Weddings, funerals. Just had a funeral on Saturday. Preparing for a couple weddings right now. That's going to be the big stuff. But also meeting with people, is a big part of it too. Whether people just going through something, they need to talk to a priest. Mm-hmm. They want spiritual direction because they're trying to make a decision on something. That's a big part of it too. And that I find that my time kind of fills up a lot with meetings. So one-on-one, and then also you've got meetings as a staff, things as a parish, trying to make sure I'm on the same page, either with the leadership team or the pastoral council or the stewardship council or the finance council or the liturgy council. There's a lot of those things that come up too. So that's kind of the main. We've added the holy hours in the afternoon, which is really beautiful. Mm-hmm. Helping out with those. So it's the schedule, it's very diverse, which I like. One thing about parish priesthood is I'm not just doing spiritual direction all day or just saying mass all day long. There's a lot of diversity in my schedule, but it does tend to fill up pretty fast.
What has surprised you the most about priesthood?
Yeah. That's a good question. What surprised me the most? Honestly, maybe just how much I just enjoy it. Like, I thought I would find it very meaningful, and it is. And I knew what I needed to be doing. But I also just really enjoyed it. It gels well with me. I like people. I like being with people. I like serving them. And I enjoy, coming to the office and saying hi to Liz, the receptionist. And I enjoy answering my emails and answering the phone and hearing confessions and saying mass. Like, it gels very well with my spirit, And I find that it's like so meaningful. Like, that's what's incredible about priesthood is it's just so meaningful. It's not always easy. Because it's not always easy. It's not always fun, although it is fun a lot, but it's always meaningful.
What's the most difficult part of being a priest that you've discovered?
Yeah. I think maybe I would answer that question from two perspectives. There's like everyday difficulties, just kind of like working with this stuff. And for me, a lot of that is like just kind of mundane tasks, things you got to take care of, things you got to do, logistical things. I'm more of a creative kind of type. I want to like tackle things in different angles. And part of, priesthood is like even paperwork, for a wedding, you got to take care of the marriage license and things like that. Mundane maybe stuff is kind of hard. On a deeper level, I think long-term, like obedience and like celibacy are gonna be the big, and there's a reason you took those promises. If they were easy, you wouldn't have promised to do it the rest of your life. It would have just been like natural. To do whatever is asked of you is going to be difficult long term. So far, it's been real easy. They told me to go to St. Faustina. I love St. Faustina. It's easy. But long term, there could be some moments where that's really difficult. And certainly celibacy. I think again, I'm young and it's exciting. But there would definitely be moments where it's like, wow, not having a wife and family. That's going to be hard. Moments it's going to be lonely and difficult.
So you still struggle with that?
I don't think it was about ever like not struggling with it anymore. I just wanted to make sure it was what God wanted.
Okay.
And it's not like struggling with actually being celibate. It's again,
Yes.
the continual recognition that like, okay, I am giving my life entirely for the people. This is not about me. This is about union with Christ on the cross, and that's so life-giving. I think there's so much about that makes life worth living. Celibacy isn't about loving less. It's about loving more in a lot of ways.
Now, you were this generation's type of priest where, you YouTube, social media, a lot of people know you for being really into new technology and all that, being on social media and all of that. What do you think makes this batch of how the priests of this generation are going to be very different from priests in the past?
Well, the Holy Spirit's always responding to the needs of the times, right? So hopefully that can be reflected, obviously in the priesthood and how religious are living things out. So God kind of hopefully gives you the priests you need for that time. And we have these are unique times that we're living in with unique challenges, and the church needs to have a unique response to it. So I think we're all trying to do the best we can to take what we've gotten from the church, historically, and to do the best we can to apply that now in the current situation. So I'm excited to see, just in my class, these are good guys who are priests, and guys coming up in the seminary. These are solid guys, so I'm really grateful to have that, in the church right now, and excited to see what they do.
So you're quite a young priest. I mean, when you were ordained, you're pretty much younger than the normal ordination age, right? By a few years?
Yeah. Generally speaking. I mean, 25 is the youngest you can be in terms of church law. And so I was 25, which used to be more common. Now, like we talked about before, if a guy goes 9 years in and comes straight out of high school, usually he's going to be 27. So it just kind of depends.
So you were right there on the cutoff.
Slid in.
What challenges do you face being so young as a priest?
I don't think there's a lot of drawbacks to it. I kind of thought, honestly, like I look young, I thought I would show up places and people would be like, yo, are you a real priest or whatever? But they mostly just see the collar and it's like, oh, hey, Father. You know, it's like I'm actually mostly surprised by how not surprised people are, or at least they don't show it on their faces. Maybe internally they feel a little bit more. But I've never had a situation where anyone I think was like, dismissive or disrespectful or something because I'm young. You know, in fact, I felt the opposite. It's pretty incredible. I show up at a parish with 10,000 people and I'm 25 and everybody's automatically calling me Father. You know, like Father, you know, it's like wild. I was at the gym a few months ago and there was this guy there and he asked if I was using a machine. I was like, oh, no, I'm not. And he kind of looked at me funny and he was like, Father? and I was like, son? No, I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. But I was thinking like somebody else watching that unfold. Like I'm just in my gym clothes, right?
Yes.
Was like this like middle-aged man just referred to this young 20-something guy, you know, as Father. Like that, what is going on here? You know, it's like, it is pretty incredible. So even though I'm really young, I felt like, you know, it's been a huge gift.
So you don't have gym clothes with a collar on it?
I don't. No, some guys have that. I don't.
Oh, really? They have those?
Yeah, they have
that
like
wasn't meant
a
as a
black
joke,
shirt with a little white mark on the top.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
You can get those. So what are the rules for you, you know, wearing your collar? Do you have to wear it all the time? Like, you know, what is the...
Yeah, no, you don't have to. No one's checking up on us to make sure you are. I want to wear it because it's what I am. You know, so many Catholics in the world are undercover. That's pretty much every lay person's undercover in some way, you know, which we need. But it's good to have some people who are showing it publicly, you know. So I pretty much wear it all the time unless I'm at the gym or, you know, just at home.
Is there a rule that you can't wear it at the, you know, while you're doing certain things like jogging or what, you know?
No, I think you totally could. It would just like, it would start to smell pretty bad after a while, I think, you know, and it is black and it's Houston. So, but I think if we show up at an event with the cardinal, everybody wants to make sure they've got theirs on. That's really important. Outside of that, it's kind of up to you to hopefully want to do it.
What's the dynamic like with, you know, you being such a young priest and then let's say older priests or older parishioners? What is that like?
I think it's been nothing but positive, you know, for me. I have so much respect for older, like Monsignor Borski, right? The guy's been a priest for 50 something years. And it's just incredible, his faithfulness, you know, like he has seen so much good and bad and he's stuck with this, you know, like that's just what I want, you know, to be able to be as faithful to the priesthood as he's been to it, you know, and all these Catholics we see, you know, in the pews, these are people who have seen the church go through a lot of things, good and bad. They've seen all these aspects of life, and this is where they are, and this is where they choose to be. So I know I have a lot to prove still, you know, a lot to still accomplish, and I just hope I can be guided well in that by these people who have proven it.
Do you have people walking up to you, or even priests, like older priests? You know, do they give you advice? Do they give you tips or anything like that? Yeah, certainly. I mean, I asked for it, right? Like, what advice would you have for a young priest? You know, and I always appreciate that. A guy told me recently, like, hey, make sure you pray and make sure you stay humble and make sure you stay joyful. And I thought that pretty much covers it, right? Stay close to Jesus, stay humble, and stay joyful. Is there any other bit of advice that you really remember?
Yeah, there was a priest in seminary. He told me, make sure that you meet people where they're at, but then make sure you take them somewhere. You know, I think that's a pretty good model for a parish priest. Be with the people, be with them, talk to them, get to know them, but make sure you're taking them somewhere. Make sure you're taking them to Jesus and you're not just hanging out. Like that's not why we're called here. It's just to hang out with people, like hang out with them and then take them to the Lord.
So you said that a lot of preparation goes into your homilies, and you're known for having quick, straight to the point homilies. Is that intentional, or does it just come out that way? What is your thought process when it comes to, you know, talking or thinking or planning out your homilies?
Yeah. So for me, I didn't think too much about preaching till pastoral year. Like I said, confessions and mass, like Eucharist was really my focus.
Okay.
But on pastoral year, we had a few events when I was helping out stuff and speaking. I thought, I should really get, you know, kind of figure out this preaching thing. And so I started a big Google Doc. I just call my homily tank. I'm always putting quotes in there or spiritual thoughts or, you know, old reflections I preached, just trying to build a good database of helpful information that's been helpful for me in the past that hopefully will be helpful to others. So I try to always kind of have that in the forefront of my mind. I try to look at the readings as much as I can ahead of time. So as I'm kind of just living, I'm kind of thinking about what would maybe apply to different things. And then I spend a lot of time praying, a lot of times in the chapel, I'll have my laptop out and I'll just be typing out ideas and thoughts about homilies. And what I try to do is like, it's not like I'm like, okay, I got myself 30 minutes, I'll write my homily and now it's done. For me, it's like, maybe it's 5 minutes and maybe it's done. It's like, oh, that was it. Like, that's what I wanted to say. That's good. Or maybe it's going to be 4 different holy hours throughout the week that I'm really trying to pound out something good, So I don't put a time limit on what the Holy Spirit's trying to do. And I keep going, I keep digging until I get something good. It's a lot like fishing homilies, like you're not sure how much, sometimes you go out there to fish, you throw in the line, you get something big and you're good for the day. Sometimes you have to keep going out to get something special, So in terms of preaching briefly, growing up, I just never heard anyone say like, man, I wish that homily had been longer. You didn't hear that much. So I just figured, hey, maybe it's helpful to keep it short. But I'm not ever trying to make a point about short homilies. I just, when my thoughts concluded, then that's the end of the homily. I don't want to add fluff to it. So, and in most cases, when my thoughts finishing up, it's about 4 or 5 minutes. So that's kind of how it works out.
So when you're talking about making homilies, it kind of reminded me how people speak about writing songs. Sometimes a song just comes to you. Sometimes it takes a while. Now, we know you as a musician. Could we talk more about how you write music? So is this something that you've always done as a child because you had all that free time as a homeschooler? Or is it something that you learned later on?
Yeah, so I started taking piano lessons when I was pretty young. I didn't take them very long, but I got to where I was like comfortable on piano.
Okay.
Started taking guitar lessons when I was about 10. And then about a year after I started guitar lessons, I started writing songs. It was just kind of natural for me. My dad always asked about me playing like other songs. Like he liked Johnny Cash a lot. So he plays some Johnny Cash songs. And just for me, even at like 10 or 11, I thought like, let Johnny Cash play his songs, like we have recordings. He plays them better than I would, I'm going to play my own songs. And so that was just kind of natural for me to kind of start to write music. My first song was about our dog, Daisy. Not a very good song, but...
Do you still remember it?
Oh yeah. I'm not going to sing it now, though.
No, I won't make it.
Oh, I didn't bring my guitar. Oh, bummer. But they got hopefully a little bit better after that. And it was something I kind of just naturally, like you were saying, like it just, you can't really choose when it comes. I just get inspired sometimes and start to write music. When it comes, I just kind of let it go. So
when did you feel yourself writing like a whole lot of music? Was it during the time that you were in the seminary, or was it mainly it always happened that you wrote a lot of music?
It comes in spurts. I don't actually spend much time playing music. It just kind of when I feel kind of inspired, I'll go to it. I written quite a few songs in high school. And so my dad has been real involved with the pro-life movement and is on board the directors for the Houston Parochial Help Centers. They were looking at like trying to do a different event than just like a dinner. So he thought like, hey, how about you do like a concert, like a benefit concert with some of your music? So we planned out this concert and, we advertised, had about 300 people come and raised, I think $60,000 or $70,000 for the Parochial Help Centers. And after that, I kind of thought like, okay, I'm done with music. Now I'm going into seminary. And what I've always found is like God, when you really give your life to him, it's not like he takes away who you are. It's like, no, he called you. He actually makes you more of who you are when you're serving him. So I thought I was kind of done with music, but that 2 summers later, we did another concert. I think we had like 450 people at that one, raised a bunch more money, and that was a lot of fun. And so I kind of just kept writing music for that concert, basically. So each year since then, we've continued to do it. And it's been, each year it's gotten, I think, more fun. It's gotten bigger. And
so who organizes the concert?
So Houston Parochial Help Centers is the one who kind of helps us to, that's the one we're raising money for.
Yes.
So they help with some of the logistics, but it's mostly just kind of like me just kind of planning it,
So it's you doing a lot of the work.
Well, like obviously with the music and everything, right? I'm writing the music.
Yes,
I'm organizing the band. We're doing the practices. I'm in constant communication with the venue about like what the sound is going to be like and the stage setup. And we do get a lot of help with the Parochial Help Centers in terms of like logistics for the crowd and things like that. And my dad does a lot of the fundraising. But yeah, it's a pretty small team overall for a pretty big event, hopefully in the end.
So how do you get the musicians together for your concert for life?
It used to just be kind of me, and then I brought somebody else on. We've kind of gradually added, and now it's all priests and seminarians, which is pretty cool. So each year, it's a huge challenge every year to say, okay, like when are you guys going to be available? When can we do this? And I recognize each year it has been a different group, and going forward, it will probably always be a different group of people because it's just kind of have to work with who's available, at the time. But it is pretty cool. I mean, these guys are great musicians.
Are they mainly from our area?
Not really. So it's guys who have either come here to seminary or guys who are from here. But like last summer, we had 2 guys from the San Angelo diocese who came down. Great bassist, great violinist who played with us. Everybody else, I think, was from here.
Do you have like a list of priest musicians?
Pretty much now. I mean, it's not super long, but we have what we need, so far. So we'll see what it looks like going forward.
How do you get in the band for those, let's say we've got seminarians who in a couple of years, they're like, oh, I want to be in Father David Michael's concert for life.
Hey, we always looking for people, so more than welcome. Reach out, please.
Is there an audition process or?
Not really. I mean, usually word of mouth, you can kind of tell if somebody maybe has the chops for it, or if guys I've played with before or seen played.
So what are the requirements for the priests to be in?
Just if there's a need for the spot,
okay.
And if they're kind of good enough, I guess on the instrument proficient to play it, we don't have like a complicated audition process or anything. We're thankful that guys.
How much do you practice before the actual concert?
So it's interesting because of our schedules. Usually it's like concert's Thursday and we start practicing Monday.
Yeah, I would think that it would be
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then put on a show.
Wow.
It's wild.
Wow. So now this concert, how much is a archdiocese involved? Not at all, or this is something that you just do on your own?
Yeah, exactly. So we wouldn't put any liability on the archdiocese like that. We're not officially, affiliated with them. Yeah, it's really just some priests and Pregnancy Help Center getting together to do something good for their good cause.
Have they ever said anything to you about the archdiocese? Have they just make sure you don't do this, or have they ever said anything?
No, not really. I mean, obviously, they ordained me to try and hopefully not do anything stupid. So, and that goes for every mass, right? I get up in front of there. Now we're live streaming, and I need to make sure I'm being careful as a public figure always. Especially these days, everything in the dark will be revealed in the light. You got to be a person of integrity. So hopefully with the concert too. Obviously, if the cardinal ever told us anything, we would do whatever he said, So I always would check with the vocations directors as seminarian, like, hey, is this okay to be doing? They would say, okay. So I always wanted to make sure I was not doing anything underhanded or something.
So now you've got, you make a lot of music, you release videos sometimes on social media, music videos or any of these types of things. Do you ever have anybody from the archdiocese or the priests come and tell you something about it?
No, so not up to this point. Obviously we have social media accounts and we can use them, and especially with these days, a lot of priests now are posting things. We got a lot of live stream masses and stuff like that. So I think it's really positive. But again, if they ever told me anything, I would, do whatever the cardinal says. Mm-hmm.
So do you have now? Actually, you've told me something like this before, that some people they're not too keen on your social media presence or things that you do on social media. Could you tell me something about that?
I had somebody commented on one of the videos, and it was a bunch of really positive comments, right? And this one person just commented, "Lame," lame. It was just one word, and so I just commented about, "Hey, no worries if you didn't enjoy the video. God bless. And it's not for everybody." And so that happens sometimes, right? Not everybody's gonna enjoy it, and that's okay.
Do you ever get anybody saying, "Oh, this is not becoming of a priest"? Yeah,
I got a couple of those. I think this is unbecoming or not fitting for a priest or something. And what I would say is, like, that's a totally, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but that's a completely subjective. Like what's becoming of a priest has been pretty clearly laid out by the church in terms of, like, first my promises to obedience and celibacy, and all these things, like these things that the church asks of me. And, you know, if I'm, you know, having fun in a video, I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, I'm always trying to be very prudent and be careful. You know, whatever you put online is kind of out there for the world to see. So you want to be smart. And I always send my videos to lots of people before I post them, just
get everybody's thoughts on it.
Yeah, just to make sure nothing in there that I misread or something there I was missing, you know.
And, you know, to each his own. Some people prefer Latin Mass. Some people, you know, prefer other, you know. So it's that type of thing. You can't make everybody happy, I guess.
I have no problem if someone doesn't like my videos. And if they need help from me as a priest at any point, I will be there to help them, you know.
Do you get people giving you songs?
That happens. Sometimes people want to collaborate on songs. Yeah. And it's just time-wise, it's kind of hard to make that happen.
Because of your schedule?
Yeah.
So since you've become a priest, your schedule has been really extremely busy, I assume.
There's a lot going on in a lot of different directions. And what's tough, I think, sometimes is you think you have time that you don't actually have because something comes up, whether that's an anointing for somebody or someone just has to meet with you now because they're going through a crisis, you know? So a lot of times I look at my schedule for the week and I'm like, oh, this will be okay. And then it's like by Friday, it's like, this was crazy, you know? So it happens. But yeah, I love ministry. So I like being busy.
So it's sort of like being like the president, right? You've got a schedule in the morning, then all of a sudden by 10 o'clock, it's out the window because so much has happened. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, which makes it fun, right? Like every day, you never know how it's going to turn out. So
is there something about you that the parishioners of St. Faustina or any of the other churches that you've been at that they don't know? Any special talent, ability, or any favorite food or something like that you'd like them to know that they don't know anything about?
I got to be careful saying my favorite food around here. These people,
you're going to get overwhelmed with it.
They're so generous. I have to be. Yeah, I've learned my lesson.
Or food that you don't like.
Oh, there you go.
Something like that. Is there anything that you'd like the parishioners to know that they don't know?
Anything that they don't know about me? I don't know.
That might surprise them, perhaps?
Yeah. I don't know. I have to think about that. I mean, I do, like you mentioned earlier, I do like to go by Father David Michael. I like both.
Okay.
That's a helpful thing for them to probably know. Also, maybe a story I tell sometimes. When my brother, I was probably like 4 years old. My brother was carrying me one time in the street. It was like a gravel road, and he dropped me, and I hit my head on the street.
Oh boy!
And I got a small like rock stuck in my forehead.
Okay.
And you know, we went inside, and my mom said she cleaned it up, and she was like, "Gonna take me to the doctor," but like it was a really busy day, so she didn't quite make it to the doctor. And the next day, she did go to the doctor, and the skin had already grown over the rock.
Oh, wow.
And the doctor was just like, hey, at this point, like, it's not a problem. Just like leave it there.
Okay.
So to this day, I still have a rock stuck
you have a
in
rock
my
in your
forehead. Yeah, right there. You can like actually like feel it through the skin. So
wow.
I guess that's the thing I want the people of St. Faustina to know about me.
So everybody's going to be looking at your forehead now.
I know, right?
Now that they know this.
On this rock, I will build my church. Yes.
So here at St. Faustina, do you have a set like tour of duty? Or as the parochial vicar, do they say this many years you're going to be here and then we're going to reevaluate? Or they just put you here and then we'll see how it goes? Yeah.
So there really is not a set term. So it usually is anywhere between like 1 and 4 years. It's a pretty safe bet. Most of the time it's 2 years, but it can be 3 or 4. So who knows? We'll see what happens. I'd like to stay here as long as I can. I love being here.
Any feeling that they're going to send you somewhere else?
Like a 2-year term would probably make sense. Yeah, 2 years would probably be what we're looking at. So I'm kind of behaving as though, you know, it's a good chance I could get moved in July of this next year. But hey, if they give me another year, that'd be awesome.
If they do move you, where do you think they would move you?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Is there any preference to a type of parish that you'd like to go to?
Not really. No. Again, I mean, the chances are it probably is going to be a slightly bigger parish just because of the need. If you can have, I'm not going to be a pastor. I'm going to be a assistant priest. So probably be somewhere bigger. Could even be a place that one of my classmates is now where we kind of just switch over and move. But I really don't know.
So some people, like you said earlier, some people said, oh, we were really hoping for Father Ryan. Was his sickness, did that play into the reason why he wasn't Did anybody ever say anything about that?
I don't know. I really don't know what the personnel board was basing their kind of decision on. I do know he loved the people here. He loved being here, and the people here loved him.
Oh, yes.
And I know he's doing great things over at Prince of Peace right now, which is awesome. I'm thankful to be here. You don't really know why things work out the way they do. But the Lord's working through however it is.
So there's no chance of like you and him getting together and approaching the archdiocese and saying, hey, could you just swap the two of us or something? There's no...
Who knows? That could happen. I mean, I don't think we would approach them, but it's possible. Yeah, they mix everybody around and he ends up here and I ends up...
So there's no way you can request that a couple years down?
I mean, you could request it, but I don't think they would really...
They'll probably look at... Yeah.
What's this request? Thank you so much for your opinion.
So what are your goals for your time here at St. Faustina?
Yeah, I mean... As a parish priest, saving souls, getting people to heaven is what you're all about. So I want to hear, I actually made a list, pretty early on, like what are my priorities here? And obviously like the sacrament's number one. I want to say mass for people. I want to give them Jesus. I want to offer the Lord's forgiveness to them. I want to preach, homilies that stick with people, homilies that people can remember and like hopefully be positively impacted by in their lives. Outside of that, I want to be a father for people, get to know them, talk to them. Hopefully be a source of encouragement, be available, be there, be present. It's tough because a lot of that is kind of abstract, right? Like I'm not counting the number of confessions and, able to add up all the grace I've given out. But I trust that like if those are my priorities and I focus on them, that when I finish, I'll have done what I came to do.
So if you are moved out of here in St. Faustina, now we talked about you being very media savvy with, social media and, having your talent as a musician. Are there any of those types of positions for priests in the archdiocese? Like, is there a head of social media or, a priest that's in charge of that type of thing?
It's an interesting question. At this point, like, no, there's, priests in certain roles at the archdiocese, but those are pretty administrative, right? Not so much social media type stuff. But, and I think honestly, I wouldn't want to do something out of the context of parish ministry necessarily, right? Like social media is most fun when you're with people at a parish, like even the videos and stuff, it's way better in the context of parish life. So even though it makes it way more difficult to actually have time to do that stuff because you're busy with the parish, it also makes that stuff so much more interesting and fruitful and keeps it alive when you're in ministry with people.
So years down the line, after, they move you from St. Faustina to another parish or wherever you end up, what do you want people of St. Faustina to remember about your tenure here?
Yeah. I want them to remember a priest who loved them, right? And hopefully express that love through always being willing to hear confessions, being willing to talk, by faithfully saying mass, by trying to preach the truth, That's what I want, somebody who loved him, hopefully somebody who was an image of Christ.
What kind of advice would you give young people, young boys and girls who are considering entering religious life?
Yeah. Obviously stay close to Jesus in prayer. That's the most important thing. Your vocation is going to be God's will for your life, and you're going to know God's will a lot better if you're close to God. So to make sure you have a solid foundation of prayer. And to not be afraid to ask questions, to talk to people about it, to research, to read. The other thing I would say is like, whatever God's will is for you, it's going to be a lot better than you think it is. Like God's will for your life is never disappointing long term. Might be moments where it looks disappointing, but it's always going to be better than you thought it would be. God is always going to take you deeper. We have a God of abundance and more and surplus. And what he's looking for the most is hearts that love him. God doesn't need more money or more time or more food. What he thirsts for is souls who love him. That's why God came in the person of Jesus and suffered and died, was to get us to love him. He wants us to love him. And so if you can be that for the Lord, you can be somebody who really loves him. He can do a lot with your life.
Now, we talked about your social media presence. Could you let us know where people can find you on social media, YouTube, Facebook, and all that?
Yeah, YouTube, I think it's just Father David Michael Moses. Instagram is Father _David_Michael. You can find some of the links at my website, just fatherdavidmichael.com. What else is there? Facebook, I don't even know what the tag is, but if you just search Father David Michael Moses, it should pop up.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing with us all of your stories.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome that you guys are doing it. Hopefully it'll bear a lot of fruit for the community.
Oh, you know what? One thing I wanted to do while you were here, since you were, I forgot to do it early on in the interview. I was like, okay, we've got a young hip priest that's here. I got to put on some sunglasses and just so I kind of fit in with you
There
on the
you
screen.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot my
All right.
sunglasses.
The cool Father David Michael Moses. Thank you so much for being with us here on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.